your favorite internet roommate.
One of the things I've noticed in recent years is sort of this reappreciation for older graphics. Lately, I've been seeing a lot of love for that whole like low poly, you know, like Nintendo 64, PS1, and even PS2 aesthetic. Look at this digital art done by Jack MCV. He uses Blender to take this scene from the 90s film Fallen Angels and turns it into a low poly PS1 render. This goes stupid hard for no reason. Just look at this. Another artist doing similar work is Vic Estrella. What he focuses on specifically are parts of Mexico and Mexican culture, and once again turns them into a PS1 render using Blender. And again, this goes stupid hard. Point is, it got me all reminiscent and thinking about older video game aesthetics and why they're so memorable and loved even years later. Nostalgia definitely plays a part in that. Like, you play that Budokai 3 opening in front of me too many times, like once, I'll cry. I'll do it. Don't test me. I'm a bitch. I wrote that in that script exactly how it was before Toriyama's passing. I didn't even understand the weight of what I was saying. We're gonna do a Dragon Ball video probably after this one. Just wanted to let y'all know that, damn. Whether you're talking about the beautiful pixel art of Chrono Trigger or the gorgeous cell shading nightlife of Jet Set Radio, or the foggy low poly horror of Silent Hill, every gamer sees a different era's aesthetics as home. Because yes, it is hard to tell if that is actually Keanu Reeves' beautiful face or just a video game, and there's probably a mole on Arthur's butt that has more pixels than the entirety of Ocarina of Time, but still, there's just something special about this. While I do think it's impressive to look how far graphics have evolved over the years, I want to talk about what these older game aesthetics bring to the table and just appreciate them. You know, just give them a nice little scruff on the head, and then maybe look at newer games that took that same style but gave it a fresh new cut. You know, like you look at it and you just can't help but go like,
I like it cut, G.
That looks good. If any of that at all sounds remotely interesting to you, then please hop into this time vortex with me as we begin our journey with... My bad, y'all. Sometimes these time vortexes can get backed up, so I'll just be floating here for a little bit. Damn, I'm hungry. Can't even go to like the grocery store or anything. Oh, but lucky for me, my Factor order can send me fresh, never frozen, chef-crafted meals, even in a time vortex. For me, what I really appreciate about Factor is I struggle these days with knowing what exactly a healthy meal even is. Social media got me thinking cold water is fattening at this point. But with Factor, I don't even have to think about that, because they'll send you meals that are dietitian approved, calorie smart, protein smart, and even vegan options. They remove all that time and hassle of finding a healthy recipe, going to the grocery store, prepping ingredients. All of that is taken care of by Factor and sent to your door, or in my case, a time vortex. And the best part is a lot of their meals can be ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So I can make my whole meal in this time vortex and start eating it before I even gotta start the next part of this video. So if you're struggling with time management, eating healthy, or even saving money because grocery price is kind of crazy right now, Factor can help with all three. So why not get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month of orders? Using my link, click the link in the description or scan the QR code with your phone. And now while I'm still here, I'm gonna finish this meal and we can get back to the video. This is the most obvious place to start, as it's kind of the genesis of gaming aesthetics, and it's probably the most nostalgic to me. I mean, just look at my PFP, look at what you get when you're at my highest tier on Patreon. You could totally join too if you want one. Cough, cough. This is just home to me. So naturally, it just has this innate feeling of comfy nostalgia built into the colors and shapes and textures. And while it is a style that is far more simple, I think that not only allows it to have this innate charm, but I also think it allows it all to stay in our minds so much more clearly. Because with pixel art, you kind of have to make a representational depiction of something versus a one-to-one depiction of it. They can only really show the most recognizable parts of whatever they're depicting. From there, it's all about the creativity of the color usage or the textures. One of the things that immediately comes to mind when I think of peak pixel art, especially in that SNES era, is all the gorgeous ass JRPGs. God, the backgrounds, the colors, the overworlds. I remember being able to like fly around these overworlds and thinking it was like the most amazing invention ever. All the great character sprites that at times have the most charming ass animations. I can't help but have a smile on my face every time I see the Chrono Trigger like celebration animations. Look at that shit. I love it. And whenever they make a character sprite that was a lot bigger to like, you know, depict a boss or a god character that you always fight at the end of JRPGs, that's where the coolest artistry is, because you get to see them just pack these sprites with so much detail. It's like, look at this shit. You can't tell me that shit isn't cool. You got Trials of Mana, which is just the perfect depiction of like a fantasy world in pixel art. Rustic villages, beautiful bright skies, and there's just something about forests in pixel art. It's my favorite way to depict a forest in video games. Look at the way the roots of this grand elder tree just dig deep under the water, and then you got these beautiful little lily pads just floating here. Oh my god, this place is stunning. Oh, and I've always found waterfalls to be like particularly special looking when done in pixel art, especially like in this case where you can like just have your character run underneath it. I don't know, I just fuck with it. You also have the original Star Ocean, which usually goes for a more moody color palette, still colorful, but not as vibrant. If Trials color palette was like the original gummy worms, this one is like the wild berry flavor gummy worms. But regardless, it makes, again, for some gorgeous-ass environments. Look at this gorgeous autumn-looking red forest. Look at this hilltop shot. Like, are you seeing that skybox with that sunlight just beaming through those blue clouds? Oh man, look at the way that the clouds that you don't see are reflected into the puddles of this area. But the peak of Star Ocean's aesthetics have to be in snow areas. That moody, berry-flavored gummy worms color palette just beautifully lends itself to this weather. And of course, you can't talk pixel art and JRPGs without talking about Chrono Trigger. The range of types of beautiful pixel art you can get in this game is insane. Because of that time travel mechanic, you get to see all these beautiful overworlds and environments from all these different time periods. Medieval fantasy lands with villages and beautiful lush forests. Grand castles that have trial rooms that look like this. Look at the scale, look at the colors, look at this stained glass window. But you also get the rainy, dinosaur-filled jungles of the past and the bleak, barren, dystopian sci-fi future. You get it all here, and it looks beautiful. And don't even get me started on the island of Zeal. I will never forget seeing this for the first time. It would begin my obsession with floating, green, like castle environments. And the way that the waterfalls just fell down almost eternally just into the atmosphere. Whose ever idea that was? Another thing I always appreciated during the pixel art era were the backgrounds of pretty much any fighting game. Like, look at Suzaku Castle from Street Fighter. Nothing beats that orange skybox with those clouds and the sun setting. But there's so many more. Like, let me show you. Then you got this castle area with this beautiful brick architecture. Look at those angel statues with these birds just chilling here. And it's got moss growing on the statue, which you know always gets my willy going silly. Not to mention the scenery in the background with those beautiful mountains, that blue twinkling water, and that gorgeous or a Borealas. But wait, there's even more. Then you got these ruins with that beautiful background, that beautiful sky, and just look at the statue. Just chilling in the background of where you're fighting at. But it wasn't just Street Fighter. Mortal Kombat also had some really cool backgrounds, but instead of like making me awe at their beauty, they kind of scared the shit out of me as a kid. With this really weird palace area with these moving clouds and this random ass wizard just kind of floating there. Part of the look here came from the team actually experimenting with digital graphics. They had footage of real stunt people and even real background elements and digitized them down to pixels, which is a big part of why these games have that semi-real look to them that's kind of uncanny and a little spooky. Like this tree area that always gave me nightmares, cause like, I mean, just look at how spooky the trees are, and also the way their mouths open, like... And in the 90s is where you start to see them kind of experiment with what they can do with pixel art. Donkey Kong Country is an obvious example of this, kind of taking pixel art and kind of mixing it with pre-rendered 3D graphics. Or the way they mix pixel art with hand drawing to create what is probably the most beautiful game of this era with Yoshi's Island. Everything about this game just makes me feel so comfy. The warm, vibrant colors, or the way like the clouds or objects in the background just slightly move. Mixing these styles basically made this timeless style that looks like a sketchbook come to life, that you could just run around and roam in. And this marriage of hand-drawn with pixel art has kind of been an evolution of pixel art altogether. Like, I almost had an entire section just talking about beautiful hand-drawn looking games, but I didn't want this video to be any longer than it probably will be. You see it with things like Golden Sun having these pixel art characters kind of running around a hand-drawn world. And it was already beautiful here in the 90s, but when you look at how hand-drawn aesthetics with pixel art has like evolved in recent years with indie games, Hollow Knight is an amazing example of this. There's so many beautiful locales in this little bug world that feels very inspired by Angel's Egg. Like, I'm never gonna forget that first time I came to the City of Tears with that beautiful music and just the rain-drenched Victorian architecture. Like, it's an amazing example of graphics that some would deem older looking, but really it's just timeless hand-drawn beauty. Same could be said for how it was used in Nine Souls, or how it was used in Cuphead to deliver on that rubber goose, you know, old Disney aesthetic. Check out how Pokemon Mystery Dungeon had this pixel art aesthetic, and when they remade it, instead of doing, you know, whatever the fuck this is, they went for a more hand-drawn style that kind of mimics those little illustrations that you would see in the original game, which is, that's awesome. In fact, the Pokemon series is actually a great example of what I'm talking about here. Growing up with the Pokemon series, one of the coolest things to see was how Game Freak slowly masters the look of pixel art through Gens 1 through 5. Y'all know I could talk all day about that snowing volcanic ash route, or the desert route with the sandstorm, or the rainforest route with the overgrown grass and the constant rain, the comfy, colorful flowers in Floroma Town, or Eterna Forest with like the shade of the trees and the music and like the old chateau. But I remember distinctively the first time I played Gen 5. I was blown away at how far the pixel art had come, and there were so many beautiful locations, and the way how the game had different seasons that would change the aesthetic of the locations you were in. But I would say the biggest change was the sprites of the Pokemon themselves. The Pokemon would actually move, and while yes, it's a small change, but I think it adds so much to the game and really elevates it. At this point, all I could think was that Pokemon had mastered pixel art, and it could only go up from here. Right? The Pokemon games are a perfect example of how having more graphics doesn't necessarily mean a better aesthetic. I still think Pokemon has yet to make a game that is visually pleasing as these games. Because when they did move to 3D, I just don't think they've really found an identity in that field. Don't even get me started on how some of these 3D models have just butchered my boys. Like, Not to say that 3D graphics in general are bad, plenty of games have made that transition much more smoothly, like the Mario series or the Zelda series. But with Pokemon, it just feels more at home with pixel art, and I feel they could have just kept elevating that look. Instead, I feel like they saw 3D as like this necessary step to evolution, and that pixel art was old, which as you've seen is just not the case. A lot of these pixel art games from these eras have aged far more gracefully than their 3D counterparts from around the time. Pixel art as an aesthetic is timeless. Much like how just because we have paintings that can capture the exact reality of a subject, that doesn't mean that now more impressionistic style paintings are somehow outdated. In a lot of ways, you can compare pixel art to something like Impressionism, or probably something more like Pointillism, which are paintings that use individual dots to create an approximation of something. I think this is why indie games that have to use these styles because they have a much smaller team continue to thrive and are wildly loved for their visuals. Like, these games are some of the most loved games of the last like 10 years. And because they're using modern tech to make these pixel art games, it allows them to make these games a lot easier than it would have took back in the day. But also, pixel art has never looked better. Have y'all seen Octopath Traveler 1 and 2? These games are such beautiful examples of modern pixel art. Could you imagine if we were in a timeline where instead of Pokemon moving to, again, wherever the fuck this is, instead they stuck with pixel art as an aesthetic, and now we would have Pokemon games that look like this? Whatever timeline that is, they're probably doing a lot better than us because they didn't have to hear me yap for an hour about regions. Hyper Light Drifter is another great example of games that just nail the usage of pixel art to deliver on an aesthetic. I remember being awed the first time I saw this landscape with the beautiful pink sky and the city in the distance. Oh my god, look at that shit. Or whenever you see those awe-inspiring shots of the decaying titans just chilling in the background. Celeste would beautifully merge hand drawing with pixel art to create some of the most gorgeous skyboxes in any pixel art game. Like, are you seeing this beautiful mix of pink and yellow in this skybox here? Again, look at that Aurora Borealis. Wow. Blasphemous uses pixel art to create this realistic, dark, religious imagery. Wicked dead trees everywhere, decaying architecture and statues, lots of moody yellows and oranges. Everything kind of looks like an old, dark, religious painting. And I love the look of Dark Souls, but I've always wanted someone to make like a mod or something of like the entire Dark Souls game, but just in pixel art. But I pretty much get that here with Blasphemous. Point is, there's still plenty of amazing examples of how pixel art continues to live and thrive to this day. And I think as games continue to reach higher highs with pure realism, there's always going to be a place for these pixel art games to give you a refreshing alternative. Pixel art has shown to stand the test of time, and I think is proved itself to be far more than just nostalgia, but an aesthetic all to its own. But now it's time to move to something far more triangular. Now, I don't really give a shit about labels. I'm just calling this low poly because I don't really know what else to call it. Basically that era of games from like the Nintendo 64, PS1, PS2, the just trying shit in 3D era where they were just obsessed with this shit to the point where, you know, you open up Mario 64 and the menu is just Mario's 3D ass face that you could just, you know, fuck with and mess with and, you know, just kind of make it look all silly and whatnot. What I find interesting about these visuals is that, you know, in an objective sense, this obviously hasn't aged as gracefully as something like pixel art. Mainly because a lot of these games were attempting to match reality, and, well, what the fuck happened to Hagrid? But as you saw with those artists that I talked about at the beginning of the video, there is an affinity for this aesthetic. Part of that obviously comes from nostalgia, but I do think there is something to this aesthetic that it makes it so impactful to people. While yes, a lot of these developers probably were trying to make this look as close to real life as possible, I think in a kind of death of the author sense, because of the limitations at the time, because you couldn't just so easily make something, look realistic, it inadvertently did create a unique aesthetic. Which admittedly is kind of funny, to be looking at like a polygonal fuzzy sunset, an Ocarina of Time, and still just being like, man. Are you seeing that? This era's aesthetic skyboxes, they always stuck with me for some reason. It's like this weird mixture of it's beautiful, right? But also it has this like weird trippy vibe to it. Let me lay down right here. Let me see. I feel like Spyro was just a goat when it came to this. Like, look at that mix of like a kind of sunset looking pink and orange sky underneath the clouds, and then above is like space with the stars and the black and the purple. Look at that eclipse over there, and the way there's just this orange purplish sky and just all the like yellow around the eclipse and like the clouds. Oh my, what? Look how heavenly that looks. The way that warm orange sun is just bursting out of these white and blue clouds. I'm not even sure if I want kids, but I would definitely like paint that on like my kid's ceiling if I had one. I don't know if that's something like a good parent would do or like if the kid would like it, but I hope so. When it comes to the Spyro skyboxes, I could just talk about them all day. Somehow they took these low polygon graphics and were able to make these just like impressionistic dreamscapes out of them. Wow. Because they really lean into the artistry, I think this shit is timeless. I always love like the autumn feel in this area in Banjo and Kazooie. Just look at that beautiful orange and yellow gradient, and then the giant trees. Or this sunset in Rusty Bucket Bay. The purple at the top, the water in the distance, the yellow and orange, just a little hint of clouds, and just that sun. Like, I look at this and all I could think is, we gonna be okay. We gonna be okay. We gonna be okay. Yo, this level in Pokemon Snap had like my favorite skybox. You got that rainbowish, iridescent colored sea, and then the stars in the sky with constellations of Pokemon? That shit was genius. Like, you got that Mewtwo over there, the Kingler, the Pinsir, there's a Dugtrio over there, and coughing. Oh, and the Mario 64 skyboxes, they were always a standout for me. Again, because there's a lot of unintentionality going on with a lot of the look of these games, all their aesthetics are in this flux state of trying to be reality, but they can't. So what you get is a lot of surreality. That's why there's this weird unintentional creepiness and unsettling nature to a lot of these games, but especially Mario 64. I've seen so many people talk about how like creepy this game is, and it makes them feel all weird, which is usually not normal for Mario, you know? No other Mario game has that weird creepiness to it except in this one. So many of the Mario 64 levels have this unsettling liminal space vibe, and a lot of that is because of this era's aesthetics, but especially these skyboxes. They create this juxtaposition between the levels and the skyboxes. Cause like, look, this is Big Boo's Haunt, right? It's like your standard Mario 64 level. It's a little spooky, but you know, it looks like a Mario 64 level. But then look at the skybox for the level. Like, where the fuck are we? With those black creepy trees, the realistic ass moon in the background? I am freaked the fuck out. And you can say that about pretty much any of the skyboxes in Mario 64. Especially the one for Wet Dry World with this abandoned underwater city with like the sun just beaming through. Like, what the fuck is that? There's a reason there's so many like weird creepypastas about just this skybox alone, you know? Look at this picture I took of Milo. Isn't he fucking adorable here? Look at him. Got those fucking shotgun barrel fucking nostrils and... Oh, shit! I think one of the clearest examples of this lower poly aesthetic adding to the horror and making things actually more scary is with Dead Hand. In the original Ocarina of Time, Dead Hand That's a fucking nightmare. That is nightmare fuel. You want that shit far away from you. But then in the 3D remake for the 3DS, aw, he's kind of cute. Now, I'm not just mentioning this aesthetic's like innate unsettlingness just to point out like, hey, it's kind of quirky how this looks kind of, you know, a little scary. I'm mentioning it because it makes for the perfect home for horror games. When I think of the most iconic, classic, actually terrifying horror games, games from this PS1, PS2 era always come to my head, with the obvious examples being Resident Evil and Silent Hill. And I know there's remakes coming and there's already been remakes, but there was something about them being in this style originally that I think added to the horror that I don't think can be captured, even if maybe it now can be more realistic. Partly that comes from you not being able to fully register what you're seeing because it's not completely lifelike, so your mind has that ability to like fill in the blanks and kind of add to the horror in that sense. But I also think innately this low poly aesthetic does look very fucking uncanny. So putting a horror game in that aesthetic leans into it. Basically, because these games were made with those limitations in mind, it added to the ambiguity, it added to the horror, and it added to the atmosphere. For example, these systems had a very short depth of field. From what my dumb brain understands is they don't have enough processing power to like load up everything that should be in front of you pretty quickly. But a lot of these horror games use that as a strength. Silent Hill is the most obvious example of this. Adding this huge fog all in front of you not only adds to the horror because a monster will just like pop out of that fog and that's fucking scary. You never know what's coming in front of you. But also they weave that into the narrative of the game, and thus now it's not just a fog that's there for limitations, it's a fog that's there to add to the world of Silent Hill. But even games that didn't have the fog, that just kind of leaned into the fact that, hey, we can't show that much in front of you, that only adds to the horror because it's so dark that the only thing you can see is what's right in front of you and everything else is just this pitch black void. So when something comes out of there, you're not expecting, oh shit! And you'll see this idea of using these limitations as a strength in horror indie games. There's a lot of these games that purposely choose to use this low poly aesthetic, and not just because maybe it's easier for a smaller group or even one person to develop in that style, but because they know if they lean into it, it can add so much to the horror. Akamundo is a great example of this, only having this little lighter to like light your way and everything in front of you is darkness, making every moment feel more claustrophobic and more scary. But also a big limitation of this low poly aesthetic was how oftentimes the textures and even the models at times had this weird like warping effect. Like you see over here as I'm moving forward, the like texture just does this weird effect. That makes the world of this game so much more uncanny and trippy. Another game that uses this aesthetic and leans into it really well is Sanguine Sanctum. I think this game perfectly understands and exemplifies the weird uncanniness of this aesthetic and leans into it. There's parts of this game that make me feel like I'm in the eclipse from Berserk, or like a world that was like destroyed by that eclipse. Nothing in this world makes sense. Like, look at all those fucking floating rectangles up there. Like, what the fuck is going on? Where the fuck am I? But it's not just these horror indie games that have adopted this style and used it gracefully, but you can also see the love for this aesthetic reflected in demakes. For those who don't know, a demake is the opposite of a remake, taking a game that is probably more newer looking and then devolving it in a sense to an older aesthetic or style. Like, I love Bloodborne, I think it's a beautiful game, but seeing it in this PS1 style through the demake did so much for me. And going back to how this low poly aesthetic really does add a lot to horror, there's moments in this demake that I think are far more scary in the demake than the original. Like that opening scene where those little creepy baby dudes like crawl on top of you. In the original, it's scary. In the demake, and kind of a side note, but it comes up in the demake, one of the things that I loved about this era of aesthetics was the menus. Surprise, surprise, I like random, unnecessary, not really important, cool things in video games. It's me. But I always loved how a lot of these games had these menus where when you clicked on an item, it showed you like this entire 3D render of the item, and it would like spin around and shit. No fucking clue why I fucked with it.
but I fucked with it. And they have that kind of menu in the D-Make, and I just think that's really cool. And because I can't put it in better words, let me show you a clip of the creator of the Bloodborne D-Make where she talks about like why she did this and why she thinks they're cool.
Earlier I mentioned replicating sensibilities of games made during the PS1 era, because it's not just the hardware, it's the mindset of culture, right? If you gave a modern developer a development kit for a PlayStation 1 game and told them to make an indie game with it, and it was authentically a PS1 game, it would be fundamentally different from a PS1 game. You'd throw it into the library of PS1 games, it would stand out. The biggest example of that is the like, holy shit, we're in 3D now mindset, where every game would just shove a big 3D object in your face and like rotate it around super slowly. Every game did that, and it was great. I loved it. Tomb Raider was a big inspiration, specifically like the radial wheel of the 3D objects. That was definitely Tomb Raider inspired. That stopped as we got used to 3D. It wasn't eye-popping anymore. It was great bringing that back.
And those are kind of like the most important things about why this aesthetic is cool. But now, because I'm a shitty writer, that's why I'm a YouTuber. So I'm gonna just throw this section in where I just kind of like point at things and be like, hey, that's cool. Isn't that cool? I think that's cool. I don't know what it was, but there was something special about snow levels, especially on the N64. Something about snow in this low poly aesthetic just makes for the perfect marriage. And it might sound funny coming from like someone who grew up Muslim, but like this is Christmas, you know, like this personifies Christmas. So I don't know. I fuck with it. The comfiness is just unmatched. Another aspect I don't think gets enough love is pre-rendered backgrounds. There is something about the artistry on a lot of these, especially in Final Fantasy VII. The way that this single just drawing of a shot just added such a sense of place to everything. And going back to horror games, pre-rendered backgrounds were also used very masterfully there. The Resident Evil games are a prime example. The way that because you were stuck in a specific camera angle just added so much to the suspense and the horror. Honestly, I could probably make an entire video just talking about pre-rendered backgrounds, and I probably will do it. That sounds very, you know, internet pit stop core. But yeah, like look at this one from Chrono Cross. This shit is beautiful, this bridge, that boat just floating there, the blue water, the sky, the cloud. Oh, I love it here. I want to live here. I do find it a shame that, you know, a lot of people just see this aesthetic as like a, remember those old days? Man, we really thought that looked real. Geez, glad we're not using that anymore. Instead of appreciating the things that did come from these aesthetics and the benefits that they had. And even though there are quite a few D-Makes and indie games that use this aesthetic, I would love to see more games in this style come about in cool, unique ways in the indie scene. I want to see the style being used and preserved the exact same way that pixel art is today. Because much like pixel art, this style is also an aesthetic all on its own. Once again, I highly want to recommend you all check out and look for some artists that are doing this, especially on Instagram. Search hashtags like, I think it's like weirdcore, liminal space, and dreamcore, because I know I'm not the only one that sees this shot of a 3D render of a Maru-chan that is just spinning and thinking like, that is so cool. Which, again, was made by the boy Vic Estrella. Check his stuff out. Highly recommend him especially. And really cool of him, he actually made some art for me that you're gonna see now in our mid bumper, and I'll see y'all after that. cel-shaded games like Wind Waker or Jet Set Radio are usually the games that come up during these discussions of stylized versus realistic graphics. And that makes sense, as a lot of these cel-shaded games, even from the 2000s, aged far better than their counterparts. That's not to say that these games' visuals can't be improved on. As you can see, I'm using the HD version of Wind Waker, but my point is that these styles age better. Wind Waker is a perfect example of that. Yes, the HD remake does look better, but if you compare it to the original, the improvement isn't this drastic overhaul of the game's look and aesthetics. Versus games that went for a more realistic route, when they're made to HD, they need to be completely redone. And apart from looking more timeless, the thing I really love about cel-shaded games is how they just bring this vibrancy and life to whatever style they're mimicking. The way color just pops on cel shading needs to be studied, because this shit is beautiful. It's flat, it's vibrant, it's probably why so many cel-shaded games are so colorful. And on top of that, I feel like the cel-shading look is just very adaptable to whatever style. It can be used to mimic a anime-esque style the way it did for the Afro Samurai game. Or look at the way it was used in the Sly Cooper games to embody that look of like just a Saturday morning cartoon. It also worked in capturing the comic book aesthetic for Ultimate Spider-Man. And don't get me wrong, I think the new Spider-Man games look good and they're more realistic look, but for me, this is, to me, what I think Spider-Man games should go for aesthetically. Maybe I'm wrong for that, but I would have much preferred a newer Spider-Man game come out that just took this aesthetic but upped it. It was also used here in Okami to bring its Shinto painting art style to life. Just look at how these cherry blossom trees look, or that beautiful colorful flower pattern trail that follows Okami. It's almost like you can see the individual brush strokes. The entire game looks like an actual Shinto painting. Mad World is still one of the most unique looking games out there, having this very stark and limited black and white color palette, which is beautifully contrasted by the only other color you see of the red blood splatters. Again, thanks to cel shading, this game was able to take goriness and, blood splatters and make them look more stylish than ever. Or something a bit later down the years with Gravity Rush. Holy shit, the aesthetic of this game is still one of a kind. Its style was inspired by Franco-Belgian comics. The creator Toyama cites artists like Robot Voice Lady Jutsu,
Jean Giraud and Denki Bilal.
And choosing to have that style made with cel shading created something that was kind of a mix of realism and, something more stylized, but ultimately made something wholly unique and forever memorable. And to this day, people are still talking about these beautiful blue waters of Wind Waker. When it comes to games that are known for their visual aesthetics and still talked about to this day, a lot of them are cel-shaded games. Cel shading, because it fits all these different aesthetics so well, is just the perfect home for any game that's going for a more stylized approach. I mean, one of the first games ever to use cel shading, Jet Set Radio. While again, obviously it can be improved on, which Jet Set Radio Future did do that, but when you start comparing it to other, sports-ish type games from around the time that go for more realistic approaches, those do not age as well. But for Jet Set Radio and its sequel, these colors still pop, helped immensely by the black outlines of the characters. Jet Set Radio was going for a more manga character-inspired aesthetic. It also had influences from hip-hop culture and punk culture, and the city is a mix of Shibuya and New York Times Square and the South Bronx. And to me, I was always infatuated with the way the nightlife looked in these games. The colorful neon lights blinking at all the little stores, all the cool decorations and projections. And once again, even with a game that has an aesthetic this unique, that's blending hip-hop and punk rock and fucking, manga, it is able to flourish and look so fucking cool because of cel shading. Jet Set Radio might just be the embodiment of
2000s cool. You know, it's Y2K, it's retro future, it's the gorillas, extreme sports, funky music, the colors, the aesthetic, the vibe, the fashion. And when I think back to how, upon the release of Wind Waker, that its style was very hated on because it was so cartoony and people wanted a more realistic Zelda, what they were expecting and what they wanted was this showcase here. And you look at that showcase of that more realistic Zelda that Nintendo showed to the crowd before Wind Waker, I think it all adds to why this aesthetic of Wind Waker is so memorable and still talked about today. But also, not just because the Zelda team was right for picking this aesthetic, but they were also ahead of their time, because if you look at Zelda games now that are wildly loved, like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, what do they look more like? Wind Waker. Modern Zelda games and a lot of stylized games to this day are still using cell shading, and are still some of the most aesthetically pleasing games we got. I know I'm not the only one who was playing Tears of the Kingdom and would see a beautiful ass sunset and needed to take like a small little cry at the beauty break. And the cell shading made these games legit look like Ghibli films. I have a huge respect and affinity for Arc Systems games, because unlike a lot of other fighting games, they use cell shading to capture a more stylized look for their games. Sparking Zero looks hype as fuck, but aesthetically, man, I wish it looked more like Fighters, because Fighters, that to me is the best looking Dragon Ball Z game there is, because the cell shading helped make this beautiful looking game that looks like a 90s anime in motion. And I do wish that a lot more fighting games would go for this look instead of the more realistic one. Don't get me wrong, I'm cool with like the new Street Fighter, but I wish I could see it done in a more cell-shaded anime kind of look. And look, there's plenty of more examples to give. 9 times out of 10, if a modern game is going for something more stylized, it's gonna be done with cell shading. You look at the Game Award nominees for Best Art Direction, almost all of them are games that are done with cell shading. It's a style that was ahead of its time and will continue to create timeless aesthetics throughout the industry. So I made this video not just to talk about, you know, cool older graphics, but also to be an addendum to this video that I made in the past. The script in this video was like one of my first couple scripts, and I feel like I kind of got lost in like debating the whole realistic graphics versus stylized graphics, and my point kind of got muddied and lost. There's always going to be a place for more realistic graphics. Graphics are always going to continue to improve and look more realistic. But that doesn't mean that we should only see these older graphics as nothing but stepping stones, and instead see them as just another aesthetic, another art style that could be used in the right place. And not to say that these older styles don't have a home in the gaming landscape these days. I showed y'all plenty of examples. They continue to exist for sure. But I still feel that there's this stigma in the industry towards graphics that aren't going for pure realism. Like, I'm sorry, but Alan Wake winning Best Art Direction against all these heavily stylized games? That shit is highway robbery. Are you kidding me? Again, not to say Alan Wake isn't a very beautiful, realistic looking game. It is, and it has its own unique art direction, but personality-wise, this doesn't look that different from any other typical AAA game. And that's where I think my biggest problem lies when it comes to visual aesthetics in gaming. You go back to that like PS2 era, and you look at a game like SSX Tricky, right? Believe it or not, this game at the time was considered a AAA game. Because of the graphical limitations of the time, they couldn't rely on just raw graphical fidelity. You had to innovate, you had to be creative to elevate a game's visuals, which is why it probably has this extremely stylish presentation. Just look at this character selection screen. This thing is full of personality. You compare this era's AAA games to current AAA games, it's night and day. Yeah, sure, AAA games today look far more realistic than ever before, but aside from their individual art directions, I feel like AAA games don't really have as much personality anymore. They're all going for that same realistic as possible look, as opposed to the AAA games of back then that couldn't rely on that, and thus you have far more variety.
And it does make sense that the AAA market would go in this direction. I mean, the whole meaning of AAA basically means like the safest investment for the investors. And what is the most easiest, safest thing to sell to consumers and your investors? A game look pretty. There's always been this link between realism and advancement of tech. And because of that, especially now, whenever there's some new graphical thing that's happening in the market, whether it's ray tracing or, you know, whatever, AAA games need to start using it. Nowadays, AAA games don't just have the possibility of looking ultra realistic, they're expected to look that way. And not just by the industry, by fans too. I mean, think about all the controversies we've had in recent years just about graphics. People will start a shitstorm over some puddles. And in a sense, I can't really blame them. I mean, don't get me wrong, this does piss me off. Like, sincerely, respectfully, wholeheartedly, shut the fuck up. But again, graphics is what games are constantly marketing for. But I also feel like that's the reason we've lost this personality in AAA games. But even more crucially, the idea of having to constantly use the most up-to-date graphics and tech creates many of the problems that are currently plaguing AAA games. For starters, when you have the expectation that all these AAA games need to have 4K texturing and real-time face body cam capture, we need to see every last detail from the butt hairs to the puddles. Don't fucking forget the puddles, all in the pursuit of capturing reality. It creates an environment where less AAA games are coming out because of this scope being higher than ever. I mean, the original Final Fantasy VII was considered a AAA game for its time, but only 2 years after, we got FF8. And then 2 years after that, we got FF9. Because that scope was much smaller, the turnaround for making those games was much faster. Now AAA games are taking far longer years to actually be finished and come out, and sometimes they're not even finished. I mean, with Final Fantasy VII Remake, we're waiting multiple years for parts of a game. On top of that, because of these expectations of graphics, games cost more than ever to make now. And they cost more to buy too. On top of that, crunch time and overworking seems to be the worst it's been for the developers. Now, I'm not saying that this expectation that all the AAA games have to have graphical maximalism is the sole reason for all these problems, but it for sure is part of it. And maybe if we didn't just write off these older styles and different aesthetics as less than, that would immensely help not only making AAA games look way more unique than they do now, but also create an overall better, healthier industry. If you haven't figured it out yet, basically this whole video is just a stylish, disguised way of saying this. It's just this take. It's just this. Obviously, I completely understand that there is a place for both realistic graphics and more stylized ones, but continuing to have this expectation of AAA games needing to use the most advanced, newest tech in order to capture realism and connecting realism to AAA is a continuingly huge problem, because it instills this idea that the more real the graphics look, the more raw numbers are being pushed, the better the game looks. Which plainly isn't true. There's so many of these stylized games that, while yes, have less of those graphics, are still better looking games. That idea strips away all other aspects that makes game visuals interesting. I hope we can get to a point where more stylized games aren't just expected to be indie or AA or whatever. That even AAA games can be more stylized and don't have to be synonymous with realism. Like, I'm not saying I want Red Dead 2 or Last of Us to be made with stylized graphics. No, I completely understand that some of these games work really well with realism. But just that not every AAA game should be expected to go for that aesthetic. Because at the end of the day, graphics don't really matter that much, especially when the best-selling game looks like this. Shout out Manly. Thank you as always for deciding to light your bonfire here on this corner of the internet. If you're new here and you like what you saw today, I'd really appreciate it if you gave your boy a like and a subscribe. Or if you want to support me in the best way you can do that as little as 3 beans here on my Patreon. And speaking of that Patreon, I actually have to introduce y'all to this. For a while now I've had it, so if you're at my highest tier on Patreon, you're there for 3 months, you get a pixel art character designed however you want, but I haven't had like a place for us to all chill at. But thanks to Holdsy, which you should follow on Twitter for doing this amazing artwork, they made me this beautiful background pit stop area for all my patrons to chill at. So if you also want to be a mad lad like these people and have a place here to chill at, you can do that on my Patreon. But with all that being said, thank you so much for coming to this little pit stop on the corner of the internet. Peace.
For games preservation, but have we stopped to ask what preservation is and whether we, as consumers, need it? In this video, I want to discuss what preservation can mean, what forms it might take, and whether we would actually take advantage of legal access to back catalogues. First, we need to separate the case for physical media from the case for preservation. At the risk of dating this video, there have been 2 recent instances that have reignited the preservation debate. The first is the announcement of the Nintendo Switch 2's game keycards. These are physical releases of games that don't actually have the game on the cartridge. They just trigger a download and then act as a physical access token for the digital game. The cartridge has to be in your console in order to play. The other is the physical release of Doom: The Dark Ages, which again only has around 80 MB of data on the disc, and which triggers a digital download of the game. Does It Play, which does an excellent job of recording what's actually on the discs and carts of physical releases, refer to this as a stub. That's a bad thing for preservation, right? I can hand my kids my 33-year-old cartridge of Sonic 2, they can put that into our Mega Drive, and they can play the game exactly as it was. What happens 33 years from now when my kids put Doom: The Dark Ages or Bravely Default HD into their systems to share with their kids, but the servers to download the game from are long dead? That's not just a problem for 33 years from now. There are still parts of the UK, a supposed first world country, that doesn't have access to broadband internet. There are times when the internet is down due to issues with, or maintenance by, our internet service provider. There can be server outages, hacks, or simply busy periods on PlayStation, Microsoft, or Nintendo's side that simply prevent us from connecting. None of those are our fault, but they can all prevent us from accessing the content we paid for. That's in the UK, where internet is treated as a common utility. Other parts of the world still have internet that is immature, slow, prohibitively expensive, metered, or flat out unavailable. Supposedly, one of the reasons Asia sees physical releases of games that are digital only elsewhere is that digital simply isn't an option for large sections of that consumer base. While I agree that those are problems, while I'm not happy about that situation, let's also stop pretending that 1. This is a new problem. It's not. Physical game releases have been incomplete for years, with multiple examples, especially on the Switch, where higher cartridge sizes come at a premium. Even then, games that are content complete on disc at launch can quickly become outdated due to patches and DLC, with many so-called complete editions merely offering the vanilla disc and a download code for the extra content. Physical solves everything. It doesn't. Physical media is susceptible to wear and tear, damage, loss, theft, and natural disasters. Games are tied to bespoke hardware that's only getting older and harder to maintain. Pins erode, disk drives fail, and for some reason the PlayStation 5's NVMe is soldered to the board, creating a critical failure point a la the Wii U's eMMC issue. Then there are games that are tied to mandatory server logins, servers that won't always be there, and which can't be played offline. The Crew is a great example, as those discs are now effectively coasters. Physical is preservation. I disagree. A physical copy gives one person, plus their friends and family, access to one version of the game via license for personal use only. Well, assuming the game doesn't have the aforementioned online sign and DRM measures to potentially dead servers. Sure, at least one copy will probably always exist somewhere out there, but is that truly preservation? Before you type that angry comment, I prefer physical media. Just take one look at this shelf, but I'm also under no illusion as to what I'm buying. The main reason I still buy physical games is because a new release that's an immovable $69.99 on the PlayStation Store or Nintendo eShop can often be found for a more palatable $47.99 among physical retailers who have to compete with each other. There's also a debate as to whether those proprietary closed digital storefronts are in violation of the Competition Act 1998 and due an inspection by the Competition and Markets Authority, but that's another video for another time. So if physical games aren't preservation, what is? That's a surprisingly difficult question. Games preservation is often presented as a public library of games. When the Video Game History Foundation announced that 87% of classic games are no longer available to legally purchase firsthand, many were quick to say that's a problem and that all games should be available. By the way, pet peeve, we keep saying games should be accessible, as in we should have access to them, when we should be saying available. Accessibility specifically refers to inclusive design practices, such as subtitles, high contrast visual modes, and being able to turn off potentially problematic design patterns, such as QuickTime events. I can tell you right now that Super Mario World is very widely available, but it is not an accessible game. Again, another video for another time. Some games do get that treatment. We have a number of retro re-releases from Digital Eclipse, there's the Arcade Archives selection, and Capcom are fond of bundling their older titles together for modern platforms. Then we have entire companies like Good Old Games, whose sole mission is to make older titles compatible with modern platforms and re-release them with no DRM. We also have a handful of older games made available via official emulation. Some of these are locked behind subscriptions, which isn't ideal, and the quality, especially how accurately they represent the original experience, varies wildly. Again, another video for another time, but in short, is Super Mario 64 at a higher resolution with no backwards long jump exploit and newly injected higher resolution HUD elements, truly preserving the original experience? One of the main reasons people rebelled against the Grand Theft Auto Trilogy remasters was that the original releases of those games were initially removed from sale. That meant the lower quality remasters, which failed to capture the spirit and atmosphere of their source material, were people's only option. We can argue that it's better than nothing, and a younger generation have been able to enjoy gaming's roots and history through these efforts, but why doesn't everything get a port, remake, remaster, or other form of re-release? The answers are somewhat boring and predictable: commerciality, intellectual property rights, and basic marketing strategy. There are costs involved in re-releasing games. You need to create a way to play the title, be that emulation, a port, or something else, incurring development costs. You then need to test that output, so there's a quality assurance team to pay for. Getting age ratings from PEGI, the ESRB, and Cero isn't free. Many marketplaces, such as Steam, charge publishers per game they list on their storefronts, and fair enough, they have server costs to recoup. There can also be certification costs before a game is allowed to be listed. For example, Sony has stipulations for trophy support and being able to reach gameplay within a certain time frame. In many cases, the people re-releasing a game aren't the original rights holders, so there are licensing fees and royalties to pay. That's assuming we can even tell who owns the rights. Thanks to mergers, acquisitions, and studio closures, it can become impossible to track who owns what. Publishers and developers can't approach a rights holder if they can't identify them. There can also be multiple rights holders involved. For example, if a game has a soundtrack full of licensed real-world music, includes guest characters, features a product placement, or contains certain buildings that are copyright protected. Getting every party to agree can be a lengthy and costly process. It's why GoldenEye's re-release was such a surprise, as it required sign-off from MGM Productions, Nintendo, and Microsoft. Releasing everything at once is also a bad idea. Retro re-releases are drip-fed to give each game an appropriate spotlight and a fighting chance to find its audience. Consumers only have so much cognitive bandwidth, time, and disposable income. If publishers flooded and oversaturated the market, we would get overwhelmed, suffer from choice paralysis, and not even notice that certain games had become available. It also gives us time to actually play and enjoy a game before the next one comes out. For these reasons, commercial re-releases will always focus on a limited selection of titles that will reliably provide a return on investment. I don't have to like that capitalist reality, but I do have to begrudgingly accept that I can't change it. We also have to question whether making a game publicly available for purchase is preservation. After all, modern platforms are only modern for so long, and this model also creates a potentially unfair correlation between the size of someone's wallet and their access to gaming's archives. We all got excited when we learned that Sony had created a preservation team, until we learned what that actually meant. PlayStation's preservation efforts are a closed-door affair that gives first-party developers somewhere to store source code, assets, and promotional materials. The public do not, and probably never will, have access to that, so how can it be considered preservation, and should we, as consumers, care? There's an argument that copies of the source code and raw assets are the most legitimate form of preservation. The community can only create and share backups of the published game, which often contain compressed assets, such as lower quality and reduced resolution textures, and machine code. This is a version of the source code that has been automatically optimized and is no longer human-readable, often stripping developer comments while renaming and obfuscating variables and functions. Lost or incomplete source code and assets have already been barriers to games getting re-released. Famous examples include Silent Hill 2, multiple Final Fantasy games, and the Spyro trilogy. While these eventually got re-released, they came with significant changes, both good and bad. Having only the published game usually means we're reliant on emulation. If we can't mimic the game, we copy the hardware it ran on instead. That's great for compatibility and making as many games playable at once, but bad for accuracy. Epilepsy warning in 3, 2, 1. Even official releases can have serious graphical and performance issues. Okay, epilepsy warning over. Sorry about that. Decompilation projects, which is taking the machine code and trying to translate it back into human-readable code in a modern language, are so popular because they make a game truly portable. We can put it on almost any platform, and we can modify the game to add quality of life features. The tricky part is that these projects take months, if not years, per game, and will never be 100% accurate to the original, often capping out at around 99 point something. Giving PlayStation Studios internal-only access to these assets doesn't just make future re-releases easier. It can also be used to speed up production of new games right now through reusing modular assets, adapting code for existing systems rather than building from scratch each time, and showing it as examples during training and onboarding. The downsides are that the benefits for consumers are indirect, and that library only exists as long as Sony's executives are willing to pay for it. The moment it stops having a clear value proposition or return on investment, it's probably gone. I'm picking on Sony here because their approach has the most publicly available information, but it seems that most developers, publishers, and platform holders are recognizing the benefits of archival. The days of deleting everything once a project has shipped might be behind us, and that's a very good thing. The gaming community has already taken things into their own hands. We have organizations such as the Video Game History Foundation who aim to make materials available for research. That's not a public library, but it does mean games, magazines, and documentaries can be made available to students, developers, and others with what's known as a legitimate interest. On the less legally sanctioned side, gamers have been dumping ROMs and ISOs from their personal cartridges and discs for decades, uploading these to various websites. This serves as a wink-wink internet archive of sorts. Then we of course have the fan development of emulators, FPGA clone consoles, bypasses for always online requirements, compatibility packs for modern PCs, decompilation projects, and more. Fans didn't wait for permission, and it's believed that many games would have become lost media had the community not taken a proactive approach. We even have groups like the Cutting Room Floor who track down and document prototypes, beta builds, and game design documents so that we can follow a game's development journey rather than just the final product. That gives us invaluable insights, allowing us to learn what did and didn't go well. We even have GameDeveloper.com's postmortems where they speak to developers, discovering what hurdles they overcame and what happy accidents occurred during a game's production. There are also groups such as the Out of Print Archive who are scanning copies of old gaming magazines so that we don't lose precious developer interviews, early screenshots, and other key insights from the gaming press. Even the adverts in these help to inform us what gaming was like at the time. Many, myself included, are of the opinion that we can't rely on the games industry to preserve its own history because there's no financial incentive for them to do so. It's not seen to be commercially viable, and there are too many legal hoops to jump through. It's up to us, even if it's skirting the law. Sadly, the morally right thing to do and the legally right thing to do aren't always the same thing. To that end, a lot of these efforts are reliant on community funding. If you're able to, I would strongly encourage you to donate to these causes. That could be in the form of money, sure, but it could also be your time, your old games, magazines, and art books that are just gathering dust on the shelf, or, if you're part of the industry, an interview giving insights on the projects you've worked on. Likewise, I always welcome the support of my Patreon backers, who are Crow, Tiny Jericho, Mr. Terry Chaos, DuckyGo, Francis T218, and Deliberator. You can join them for perks such as pre-release video scripts in the link in the description. You can also support me for free by liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing my videos. All of that said, if an old game is still commercially available, buy it, support it, show there's a demand for these efforts. As a basic example, Tomb Raider, Croc, and Halo are all available on current platforms and storefronts with toggles for the original graphics. That's the ideal behaviour we want to reward and encourage. When we discuss preservation, we tend to take an all dogs go to heaven approach, but do we, as consumers, actually benefit from preserving every game? What would we do with that access? Thanks to flash cartridges, optical drive emulators, FPGA clone consoles, Raspberry Pis, the deluge of handhelds over the past few years, virtual machines, and good old-fashioned PC emulators, we already have access to practically every game ever commercially released, and even some stuff that didn't make it to market. There's an argument that we've already preserved the majority of gaming's history through community efforts, but is it also fair to say that when we have access to everything, we end up playing nothing? My Satiator lets me play every single Sega Saturn game, but I always boot up the same 20 or so titles. I haven't even launched 80 to 90% of the library, even though it's right there, and I imagine we've all had similar experiences. How much of Netflix's library do any of us actually watch? How much of an all-you-can-eat buffet do we actually plate up? Sure, the rotation of 20 games I'm booting will be different to the rotation that someone else regularly plays. A game that's not for me might be for you. Bad games can have value in teaching us what not to do, just as much as good games can show us best practices. The art form can evolve from both, but statistically speaking, most of us aren't games developers, tutors, or even critics. We can't implement those lessons into current releases. I believe we like the idea of preservation, not the reality. We want to know that we can have access to a game just in case we get the itch to play it. It's loss aversion. We fear that by the time we finally have the time or appetite to play something, we won't be able to. That's human. That's relatable. I know I have physical games on my shelf that I bought out of FOMO and haven't opened yet. I tell myself I'll get around to them. I know the feeling and I empathize. My ask is that we stop pretending our goals are altruistic. My desire to have access to these games is ultimately selfish. The other side of the coin is accepting that some experiences are transient and fleeting. We can't revisit them, and that's okay. I can't ever go to my favourite gig again. Story of the Year playing at the Astoria 2 in London back in 2008 if you're curious. That family holiday to Fuerteventura when I was 9, my wedding day 7, has it really been that long? 7 years? Some things are a one-off, never to happen again. Even in the context of video games, access to the media doesn't allow us to recreate the memories or emotions we've associated with them. Booting up Time Crisis 2 at home with my gun for IR isn't the same as completing the game at a barcade alongside my best friend. I can have as many matches of Fortnite with my son as I want, but I can only have this match that I'm currently playing once, and that's okay. That's what makes it special. The only way we can preserve these things is through our memory, which is inherently untrustworthy and prone to failure anyway. Does the industry need preservation? Yes, absolutely. Does that mean we, as consumers, get access to a public library of every game ever made? No, and I don't think it ever will. At least not a legally sanctioned one, because the majority of us don't have a legitimate interest. Games are art, but they're also commercial entertainment products, which we don't have any rights to beyond the restrictive licenses we can buy to play and enjoy them. There are other hurdles I could mention. The input device is a big one. Try playing Sega Sonic the Hedgehog without a trackball, or House of the Dead 2 without a light gun. But this video is already long enough. In short, I believe most of us have been missold an unachievable and unrealistic ideal of games preservation that we, as relatively normal people, don't actually need. Ultimately, those are my thoughts and opinions on what games preservation is, and, more importantly, isn't. I'm sure it will be an unpopular opinion, but let's keep the conversation in the comments civil, and I'll see you again very soon.
So, something happened. A game launched closely. MindsEye. Yes, they launched yesterday to much aplomb, as it were, heretofore, post tense. And, you know, in some ways it's better than I expected. And in a lot of ways it's exactly what I expected. You know, I do think that there is a world in which MindsEye gets delayed, gets plenty of time given to it, and it ends up being kind of a cool project. I do think there was a way to make this something interesting because they've got a lot of phenomenal talent there. They have a lot of talented voice actors and actors and motion capture. Look at the cutscenes. The cutscenes are actually pretty solid. But this thing was not ready. It just wasn't. And it's so clear when you start to look at some of these clips that it was not ready. And I'm going to share with you some of what came out yesterday, including some really funny, insane things that are insane. So just buckle up, okay? Because some of this is wacky. So people have been playing it. This was the first screenshot that started to go viral. It was taken from a video playthrough in German, and I've not been able to find it. I don't know if this is still up. I don't know if it's still around. I guess we can check again. I'm not seeing it. I wanted to find the original clip to show it in context, but I'm not seeing it. Probably because YouTube doesn't tend to release or like recommend videos in other languages. It's just not their typical modus operandi. I don't see it. And it doesn't look like any of you guys found it. That's okay. That's okay. But anyway, this was the first little snippet that started popping off. Was this screenshot right as the game launched. Some sort of horrifying, insane graphical glitch that's straight out of AC Unity. So this started making the rounds. And immediately people are like, oh boy. Oh boy. So it looks like suspicions were accurate. People were right to be concerned about this. And then more clips started coming out. Number one, performance is abysmal. Nick Tech has been putting out some clips to just summarize this. As usual, Nick Tech does a phenomenal job recapping all of this. But as you can see, playing the game on PC, game stutters like hell. Look at some of this. Look at some of these dips. Game goes crazy. So I recorded my video on the PlayStation 5 Pro because I didn't want people to say that like, oh, it's your hardware, Luke. That's the reason it's not running great. Because there's people already claiming that I like messed with my PlayStation 5 to make it run the game poorly. which is ridiculous. But even this, like you can see on PC, it's running very poorly, very, very poorly. Okay, it looks like 9800 XT. Is that what that is? 9070 XT. Like this is, it should not be running like this is the point. Okay, this is bad. It runs very, very poorly optimized. On the PlayStation 5 Pro, it claims it's PlayStation 5 Pro enhanced. On the store page, PlayStation put that on. Like PlayStation put enhanced on their game or on the store page, and it does not go above 30 frames. In fact, the PlayStation 5 Pro struggles to hit 30 frames. Most of the gameplay is in the like high to mid 20s with occasional drops even lower. Just it's not ready. Like the performance is really bad. NPC AI and variety is extremely bad. You can see tons of NPCs with the same faces but different clothes. Some NPCs react to guns, some stand like a statue. When NPCs do react, the game stutters for a moment to utilize their AI or whatever is happening in the background. Yet you can literally feel the game go like, oh, loading, personality, and then it like chugs while it's figuring out what the NPC should do. It's really, really bizarre. And you know, again, you just start to feel like the game was built with those tools, like the sort of in-game modding tools that they pitched, where it's supposed to be like drag and drop. Oh, place NPCs here. You can make your own levels and stuff. Look at that. That was unbelievable. But that comes with, you know, a lack of depth, but that's the entire game. Is the entire game feels like this. And this is why it's such a big deal. When you try to frame yourself around GTA, that's a problem. They were promoting on Reddit posts that compared their game to GTA 6 and said like, this is a great game to hold you over until GTA 6. When you put yourself into the Rockstar arena, you get these comparisons. People will make these comparisons because you entered that arena. You chose to enter that arena and be compared in that way. This gameplay makes him look like a psychopath, but you get what I mean. Like you just plowing through people. But like, this is what happens. You will be compared in these one-to-one ways that will, like, you're not going to win those comparisons. You're just not going to. Okay? It's not going to work. It's not a good idea. No police system. It's non-existent except in some mini games. You can basically do this and nothing happens as a consequence. The way they get around this is they say that the open world, in order to explore it, you have to go into a separate game mode called free roam. So they're saying, yeah, there's no police presence because that's not the kind of game we're making. We're making a linear game, but we aren't making a police system or any sort of like consequence system for these types of actions because it's free roam. It's not an open world game, which whatever. But the point is, when you have an open world like this and you compared yourself to GTA, you're going to get these comparisons. Again, like I stopped feeling bad because they compared themselves in that way. They brought up the comparisons and tried to play that game. And now they're like trying to cry foul because people are being like, yeah, but it's nowhere near as good as that. As you can see here, no melee combat. There's no punching. There's no even press the right stick to do a melee attack. There's just nothing like that. You can't steal cars. You can only enter from the left side of the car. Yeah, the vehicles are not all operable. This one, the game has traffic system issues where the cars all end up... Dude's just walking. What is happening? Like, the in-game AI is just not ready. It's just broken. It doesn't work. The cars don't know how to navigate this parking lot. So they just flip. And like, it's just, again, it's broken. If you try to explore the open world, you constantly get a mission abandoned fail screen. Whoops. During my playthrough, I wanted to explore some areas because the game seemingly doesn't want you to explore the world at the beginning of the game. Maybe it's unlocked later, but as far as 4 hours into the game, I couldn't free roam except for the time where I glitched out of a mission. If free roam gets unlocked after finishing the game, this would be a very bad game design in my opinion. Well, and it's also just the way they're getting around it is just to say it's not an open world game. So don't expect that. And you know what? Okay, but then maybe don't compare yourself to GTA. Okay, like just saying. This is probably nitpicking, but some missions are a pain in the ass. This one, for instance, begins with my car already being damaged after a shootout, causing the vehicle to explode early, and it took me multiple tries before finishing this mission. This kind of follows with some of the balancing things we heard about, where during the previews, the game was so broken that they had to turn on invincibility twice, 2 separate times, in order to actually finish it, because even the devs couldn't get through it, which you know, that's not great, but that's what happens. Yes, you should absolutely follow Nick Tech, by the way. You absolutely should. Did this recap, does great recaps. Also YouTube videos, all that stuff. You should follow Nick Tech, absolutely. Extreme ghosting issues when using an upscaler. Yes, indeed. If you're using FSR, XESS, or TSR, the game will have some extreme ghosting issues that are very noticeable and hinder gameplay. Also, they claimed, I believe, that they were going to have FSR, was it 3? One of the versions of FSR they said they were going to have, and they just straight up didn't. The open world feels empty. I glitched out of a mission once and free roamed to see how detailed Red Rock City is, and now I know why the game doesn't want you to explore it. There's seemingly nothing to it. The city is beautiful and very detailed, but lacks soul, almost like the Matrix Unreal Engine 5 demo, which is ironic because this is an Unreal Engine game as well. And yeah, I mean, again, it's more that this was a map built, that's his stutter, not mine. That's the game. It was a game that was built, or an environment that was built for the missions to take place within. It is not an open world game. And to be fair, they started following up and explaining that, but it was kind of too little too late because they had already compared themselves to GTA. And these are just a few of the little snippets. You want to know one of the most insanely funny things that happened? Carnage, who's a streamer, was booting up a game. I'll let you guess which game it was. And he was going to do a sponsored stream of it. Just watch what happened, okay?
Now I know what that is. Oh, Chad. What? Okay.
Closed one game, is opening another.
The sponsor just paused the sponsored stream. So, first time that's happened. Yep. Just got contacted and they wanted to pause the stream. Yep. Was it because I mentioned the reviews? Now I know what that is.
Maybe, dude. Maybe. If they were like, oh, no, he's Googled it. Shut it down. Shut it down now. Maybe. It's possible. It's possible. Does this mean he's not getting paid? Yeah, probably not. The thing with a lot of this stuff is, like, if they pull out, you could probably, like, sue them for contract breaking and all of that. But it's probably going to cost you more in lawyers than you would get, realistically. So it's probably not worth it. You know, like, I just... Unless you're like, I don't know, Ludwig or something. Unless you're somebody who's probably getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, then it probably makes sense to get lawyers involved if they try to back out at the last second. But yeah, I think if you're not on that like giga streamer level, it's probably not useful. Oh no, he's on his better game. Cancel it. Well, and they did a lot of sponsored streams, okay? Literally the only positive stuff I heard about MindsEye came from sponsored content. And even then, there were some sponsored things that were still not positive, okay? There were still some sponsored things that were not that positive. Is it like Viper AU? What's that guy's name? Do you know what I'm talking about? Dark Viper? He was doing a sponsored stream. So Synth says, Dark Viper AU did a sponsored stream for MindsEye and he could barely keep it together for the ending ad segment.
This preview ends of MindsEye. Just like to remind you guys that
Thank God.
Thank God.
This game was sponsored by... If you want to check out MindsEye now on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC, Epic Game Store, and Steam, feel free. You can type !spawn in chat and give you a link.
very cool game.
I'm pretty sure that this game is going to win Game of the Year this year.
It's a little funny. It's a little funny. On the one hand, like, if I know that I'm gonna hate something, we don't do sponsorships. Okay, like my policy is like with everything we cover and do, I need to check it out before I agree to do anything. So like even now, we're working kind of behind the scenes on some sponsored stuff, and I tell them like, if I don't like it, it will be obvious. Like, and of course, with all of our sponsored videos, I always say I got to be able to say whatever I want to say. So if I hate it and if there's big problems, I have to be able to say it. And to their credit, plenty of brands are like, absolutely. Mecha Break, for example, we did a sponsored video with them, and I told them I don't like how it's monetized in this like closed beta thing they did. I was like, I don't like how I have to buy the different mechs. I don't like how you have to buy to progress those things. I don't like that. And I said that in our sponsored video, and they allowed it. They allowed it. They said, okay. And you know what? They actually came out, they said they're making changes to all of that. They're actually like overhauling the progression around feedback from not just me, but from the community as well, because we were all kind of on the same page. And that's what you would hope to hear, right? Like you'd hope to hear that the brand is like, yeah, say anything you want. Our game is awesome. And if you have notes, we would like to know them. So please share them. Like that's what you would hope to hear. But there are plenty of companies that will pay you to do like sponsored streams, and it's straight up like, no, you have to talk about these features. You have to say you should go buy it. You have to go say you should do this, you should do that. And you can't critique it. You can't say anything bad. It's a sponsored stream. Like you gotta hype it up. And in this case, technically, I'm sure he did that. I'm not sure he's moving any copies as a result of this. You know, I'm not sure he's moving any copies. Funnily enough, we've actually done sponsored segments or videos actually where they're like, yeah, we'll give you access to the game. You can try it. And if you don't like it, we'll just go our separate ways. And we've had that happen. Like we've had that happen where they, the game is just not where it's at. And I'm like, I can't, no, this doesn't make sense. This is not going to work. And we walk away and we go our separate ways. And so instead of me like making a sponsored video where I'm like, guys, I really don't like this game. Instead of that, we just move on. They don't have to spend their money on me bashing the game. And we'll just go our separate ways because we don't like it. But in this case, I mean, I've seen a lot of these sponsored streams, and most of them are like, you know, they just try to be positive, even though chat's kind of toxic, and you know, that's whatever. But it's this sub message that gets me.
Just like to remind you guys that
Thank God.
this game was sponsored by
like, on the one hand, part of me feels bad for them that they paid for a sponsored stream and they're getting like, it's popping off. People are watching it, not because it's promoting the game, but because everybody knows that he actually really did not like the game, and everybody's just like, can't say it, you know? So I feel bad for them a little bit for that. But it's also really funny. Like if your game's not ready and you do sponsored content, it looks really bad. And there's been videos put out, sponsored videos, like I tried videos where people are just like hyping it up or trying to say that it's really good. But like, again, the only positive stuff I've seen about the game have come from sponsored content, which is just not how it's supposed to work. You know, it's not how it's supposed to work. It's supposed to be kind of in tandem. Positivity over here, positivity over there, some sponsored streams, and they're also loving it. That's what you'd hope to see. But instead, like we see this. It's just very funny. So Mind's Eye, unfortunately, is kind of exactly what we thought it would be. It's unfortunate that it is, but it just is. And, you know, maybe they can get it where it needs to be eventually. But when you look at the whole entirety of everything that went down with this, I think the odds are pretty low that they get given the time to figure it out. I'm just being real. Like, I think that the fact that the CFO resigned, this chief legal officer leaves right before the game comes out, and all of this is going down right before the game launches. It launches, it's super broken, and like apparently they're not moving many copies, and I'd be surprised if Build a Rocket Boy is still around in like 2-3 months. I should be ashamed of being linked to this mess. It's why I honestly was surprised that they did the showcase between Hitman 007 and MindsEye. Like, I understand they're publishing it. They put a lot of money into it. But I would love to know what went down behind the scenes, because it really seems like at some point they just said, you're cut off. No more money. Put the game out. It does what it does. And now we're seeing the results of it. Like, it just was not ready. It was super broken, very rushed. And even then, the core idea, like, it's what I said in the video I made. I think even polished and running pretty well, it's still probably like a 7 out of 10 game. Like, it's just kind of boring. So if even when the biggest problem, which is the performance, even when that is fixed, you're still looking at kind of a meh score, because people get confused. 7 out of 10 is like, that's like a C. So when I think of like a C, C's get degrees. Like, C is technically passing. You know, you made a game. That's assuming they can fix AI. That's assuming they can fix everything. It still is probably just kind of like a boring open world game and is like a C minus, but I don't think it ever gets there. Yeah, I always have to clarify with the 7 out of 10, because in my brain, I think 70, which is like a C, and in the American school system, a C is like, you completed the assignment of making a video game. Like, you completed the assignment. It's not exceptional at all. It is exactly what you needed to do to pass the bar. A D is like, I should fail you, but I don't want to, because then I'd have to have you in my class for another semester. That's kind of where I'm at. So the grading system's confusing. I would understand if a lot of people are like 5s, but again, I think it just depends on what we mean by what they could fix. If they could fix all the AI, if they could fix the NPC AI, if they could fix the combat systems, we're talking about a very different video game. You know, if they could just change all of it, it would be better. So I just don't think practically they could ever get there. But even if they did, I still think just in terms of like the story, how they have it set up, the mission structures and everything, I think it's still just like a kind of game, even with all that fixed. So I just don't see a great outcome for it. But it's what happens when you make a game that's basically just an extra mode for a Fortnite kind of ripoff. You know, it's shocker it didn't end up really great. 5 is in the middle, so 7 is good. No, I understand some people grade it that way, but most American journalists, game journalists, are grading basically off of a weird version of the American school system grading system. A 70 is a C, which is like
Ironclad Disposal donated $10 through Super Chat.
average.
Do you think we will see Sony issue refunds for MindsEye like they did for Cyberpunk?
I saw people saying that they were getting approved for refunds. So I don't know if they'll I don't think they're going to delist it or anything unless it gets really, really bad. But I've heard people, or I've seen posts from people saying that they got approved for refunds on PlayStation. So if you bought it there for some reason, go and try it. So like IGN's grading score, just so I can be clear about this, so I can be clear obscure about this, they rate like 10 out of 10 masterpiece is that it's masterpiece. It is highest recommendation. It's amazing. It's as close as somebody could reasonably expect for a game to be to perfect. It's just phenomenal. 9 is amazing. Maybe there's a couple of things that are really, really good. There might be like one problem here or there, but really, really fantastic games. Great is an 8. 7 is good. It's a time well spent. Could be better, absolutely, but it maybe lacks ambition, a few technical bumps, too repetitive, but we came away happy. 6 is okay. It's a recommendation that comes along with a bunch of ifs. That's probably a good way of describing an okay game. It's like, if you like sci-fi games, if you like games that are really trippy and wacky, maybe then you'd like it. That's probably a good way of doing it. I kind of like that. 5 being mediocre, just like totally bland, unremarkable. I could see giving like MindsEye a 5. Right now, I think it's like a 4 or a 3 on their scale, but even fully fixed on IGN scale, it's probably still like a 5 or a 6, maybe a 6 if they fix the AI and all of that stuff. I did see this. I thought this was funny. Modern review scale. 1 to like 78 is terrible. Sucks. But then in the 80s and 90s, yeah, it's like much clearer, easier to break down. Yeah. I guess officially I can work on this. If you guys think that this scale that IGN has is maybe more in line with what you'd expect, I can try really hard to change the way my brain thinks about it, because I always think of it as like a letter grade in school where, you know, a B is good, a C is like okay, D is mediocre, and then an F is bad. But the grading scale would be like shifted up by a point or two. But if this is more in line with what you'd expect, I could see that. Just be like, yeah. Mind's Eye right now, I think is bad to awful. Even fully fixed, it probably ends up okay to maybe even good. Maybe. But I mean, probably just okay at the top end. That's what I think. He took my thing. Red flag, red flag.
16 times the detail.
So I just had the pleasure of seeing Resident Evil Requiem behind closed doors as a part of Summer Games Fest / Playdays, whatever you want to call it, the thing Jeff Keighley runs. And wow. That's first thought, wow. In case you somehow missed it, this was revealed at Summer Games Fest. They had a little fake out where they said, oh, we'll show more when time is right, whatever, don't come at us. And then like 5 minutes later, they actually revealed the full trailer and showed a lot of little bitty things that got old school fans of the franchise excited, but we didn't really get to see an extended look at gameplay. We saw like some little snippets, but not much. However, at Summer Games Fest Playdays, I actually got to go to a behind closed doors preview event where Capcom showed us about like 15 to 20 minutes of gameplay of what appeared to be the opening sections of the game. Now, unfortunately, they are not sharing the B-roll or the actual gameplay that we saw. Maybe they do end up showing it later. My guess would be around Gamescom. Maybe right after that, they'll share it with the public. But as of right now, when I'm filming this video, there are no plans to share it with the public that we are aware of. So I'm going to describe it as best I can, and we're going to use B-roll from the trailers and maybe some references to older Resident Evil games. So you'll just have to use your imagination. But there's some big reveals in this that are kind of crazy. The first thing we saw was the new protagonist, Grace Ashcroft, trying to break free of her restraints on a gurney. This was shown actually in that initial reveal trailer as well. And immediately, the improvements to the RE engine are readily apparent. You know, RE engine hair is very, very unique, and so it's really clear when it's an RE engine game versus not. And in this case, I think it still is there. There's something about it that just is very, very unique and doesn't really look like any other engine. But where massive improvements have been made are in the little bitty animation details. Like every little element has been carefully animated, even down to like when Grace is laying on the gurney upside down and she's breathing heavily. Her stomach is not just like going in and out breathing like, you know, something basic. It's actually moving and contorting with the muscles contracting like asynchronously, just like when an actual human being breathes. It's like little bitty details that just make it look way more believable, way more realistic. Little twitches in the eyes or gritting of the teeth and the cheeks. Everything is just so finely detailed. It's really impressive. And that also applies to monsters and things, which we'll get to in a minute, because damn. The other thing I will say in this opening sequence is the voice actress. This has been debated since the trailer dropped. Some people have alleged maybe it's the original voice actress for Alyssa. Maybe it's one of the like voice actresses who played Claire. Like people have gone back and forth on it trying to figure out who this is. I actually think it sounded a lot like Ashley Johnson, personally, specifically the gameplay portions, like when she was grunting, running away from the monster, we'll discuss in a minute, things like that. It sounded like Ashley Johnson, which, if you're not familiar, she played Ellie in The Last of Us. Very well, maybe somebody else. Either way, whoever the voice actress is doing a fantastic job. I mean, it's just stellar world-class work as far as I'm concerned from what I've seen so far. They're doing very, very good. So rest assured, it's going to be solidly voice acted either which way. Whoever is performing Grace is doing a great job. But regardless, after Grace breaks free of her restraints, you open up into the early section of the game where you're exploring what could be a house or a hospital. It's not clear very intentionally. It's very vague where you are or what's going on. But it was very reminiscent of Resident Evil 7. And that's what everybody around me also said when we were like funneling out of the little theater after we saw this. Everybody was like, it felt very much like 7. It felt like 7 again, didn't it? And I think that's a good thing. Personally, I love 7. 7 is it's what kickstarted the modern era of Resident Evil and kind of introduced it to a whole new generation of gamers in a lot of ways after some rough games and like movie attempts and stuff. So 7, for a lot of people, they love it dearly. And I'm one of those people. And so to see that it feels and plays much closer to 7 than 8, I personally appreciate. 8 experimented with some bigger levels, with more open-ended design, with some like sort of open world stuff, but not really. Like it was just very, very different. And especially like the later sections, which turned into like a weird Call of Duty mission, I just didn't connect with. So I'm excited to see that they're kind of returning to form and going back to the basics with survival horror. What they described it though as was as addictive horror, or horror exploring addiction. It was kind of tough to get exactly what they were trying to describe because I think there was a bit of a language barrier, at least with our description that we received. But either way, it seems like they're exploring some fun ideas, and 7 is certainly where they're focusing a lot of their inspirations. Everything from creeping through the corridors, crouching around looking for the key or the fuse to put in the fuse box to unlock the door. All of that will be reminiscent not just of 7, but of older Resi games as well. But in terms of immediately like the gut feeling it gave, it felt like 7 much more than anything else. What didn't feel like 7 though was the introduction to the first spooky, ghouly, ghosty monster. I won't spoil exactly how it's introduced because if you play the game, I want that jump scare sort of thing to be something you get to experience for the first time because it was very cool and very well done. But once you see the monster, it's a very different kind of thing than we saw in 7 traditionally with the family. And it's closer to like typical like horrifying monster, very, very distended and macabre and falling apart. Looks like a Bloodborne boss, basically, is what this monster looked like. But she started like chasing this humanoid monster filled with bulbous, pus-filled whatever the hell's. She started following us through the house. And what was crazy is like the monster was big enough that she didn't fit through the doorways. And watching like the camera pan back and seeing the monster like contort to squeeze through the doorway was really, really cool. It's kind of like in, I think it was It Chapter 2, the like movie. There's that one portion where Beverly goes back to her childhood apartment and then the old lady turns into a monster and kind of starts chasing her and squeezing under the banister and stuff. It felt like that. It was a similar vibe to that monster, to this one. This one's much more grotesque and stuff, but it was a similar vibe. But regardless, you're running away from this monster. It's able to jump into the ceiling and climb through the ceiling. It's able to like affect the lights and things. But this is where this like the next really crazy impressive thing stood out to me, which was the sound design. I'm not sure if it's just because we were in like a purpose-built theater that was filled with like a beautiful micro LED screen in front of us that was like 15 feet wide, and then surround sound speakers that again were purpose-built and purpose-calibrated for what we were doing. But whatever the cause, it was so immersive. Like every little gurgle, crackle, clenching of the monster's teeth, everything was recorded and was very well balanced and just extremely immersive. It's very, very well done again. The sound design in horror games is crucial. It's crucial in horror movies. It's just a very important element. Like the visual aspect of horror is important, but the sound is often what pierces deep into your bones. And so you need to have it done really well. And in this case, they've done a very good job of it as far as I can tell. And it's definitely a game you're going to want to play with surround sound or, you know, certainly a nice pair of headphones if you have them. But that being said, we got to see some of the first kind of waves of gameplay where you're going and you got to find the key to unlock this door, and then within that room is a fuse, and you need that fuse to unlock the fuse box and to power the door back up so that you can squeeze under it and escape the monster before you get to the next area, which has its own set of obstacles as you work your way through. And again, it felt very much like 7. Now, there's a lot we did not see. There's a lot. We saw the gameplay go through running away from the monster as it's chasing you, hiding, stealthing around, and then getting through that door with the fuse, and then the demo was pretty much over. But there's a lot we did not see. We didn't see Raccoon City. We didn't see exploration of other areas. We saw a very tight corridor area that was again, very similar to the opening house section in 7. That being said, at the very end of the demo, we all are like, wow, that was very good. We're laughing and like, oh, that was crazy. That was crazy. And then the demoist is like, hold on, there's one more thing. And we see them hit escape, or not hit escape, but like in the game footage we're watching, the person hits escape, they pull open the menu, and I was like, what are they doing? What are they doing? Are they just gonna show us it supports DLSS or something? Like, what are they doing? Why are they going into the menu? And they go down to like view options, and they toggle it to third person mode. This game will support a full run through in third person or first person, and you can even hot swap between the two at any point using that menu. So if you want to play your Resident Evil games in third person, you can do that, or first person, you can do that. Or if you want to just do the boss fights in third person, but then everything else in first, you can do that. You can pick and choose. It's fully supported natively. It's very, very seamless. Like you just hit the toggle and it swaps. It's very cool. So I'm here for it. It's not quite as silky smooth as like some games, even like Bethesda games where you tap on the right stick or something and then it pulls back to third person. You do have to go into a menu. But seeing that they now are supporting that fully throughout the entire game, that's pretty damn cool. But overall, what I saw was very impressive. I mean, the other thing that I think is worth mentioning is that the ray trace lighting, which is another one of the overhauls that the RE engine has seemingly received, makes a difference here. I mean, notably, there was one moment where there's sort of a hallway corridor similar to this. Like imagine there's a big, scary, horrifying monster standing in this little doorway, this threshold right there. And then there's a massive puddle of blood right in here, okay? Massive puddle of blood because something may or may not have happened there. With traditional lighting techniques and rendering techniques, you would just kind of have the monster lit from whatever the key light is. In this case, there was a light right above the doorway, like right there, shining down on top of the monster. And you would just have like harsh light on the top and then dark underneath. But with ray trace lighting, what they're able to do then is have the light bounce off of the blood puddle and then back up on the underside of the monster. So as it's walking in this bloody puddle and the blood is rippling underneath its toes, you actually see the underlighting of a faint red glow from the ray traced lighting that is picking up basically and reflecting red light back up on the underside of the monster. And it makes one hell of a difference. I'll tell you what, it really, really does. I know we all joke and meme that like, give me better frame rates over ray tracing any day. And I think for a lot of people that is the case. They would just much rather have that. But a lot of that is because we haven't seen games really implement ray tracing in significantly transformative ways. You know, you see ray tracing in Cyberpunk with, you know, path tracing or something. And you're like, oh, I get it. Yeah, if I had a supercomputer, I can understand why that would be cool. But for the average consumer, it's just not that practical. But in this case, it is actually just an immediately very clear, visible change that is significantly better than previous iterations of the RE engine. The RE engine, of course, still has like its very unique hair system that's just very recognizable. It's not bad. It's just very, very unique. I can't even put my finger on it, but it's very unique. It still looks like a Resident Evil game. And you know, like the wood floors look great. The wallpaper looks great. The monster looks horrifying. And that fine animation detail not just applies to like the characters and the NPCs and cutscenes, but it also applies to the monsters with like their eyes twitching and their mouths twitching and the blood dripping from its teeth very, very carefully. And each one of the little pustules like quivering and pulsating as damage is dealt to it or as it pushes through a doorway. Like every little aspect of it is so well done, and they've put a lot of effort into it. I mean, they've not been slacking for sure, and I'm here for it. Just across the board, it looked really, really good, and it got me really excited for what they have to bring to the table. I also, because I'm me, I was looking for any red flags, any weird things with like performance or hitching or frame drops or overuse of upsamplers and stuff, upscalers rather, and I didn't see any of it. The game looked very sharp, very, very clean. They wouldn't tell us, of course, what hardware they were running, if this was a console version or a PC version or what, but what we saw was very, very polished and looked really, really good. Again, it was on like a 15-foot wide screen that was like full 4K. Like if there were problems, we would have been able to see it. And I'm honestly hard pressed to come up with anything. It just looked great. So initially I was like kind of suspicious and skeptical of releasing in February of next year. I was like, yeah, that would be ideal, but what are the odds you're gonna have to delay it? Because like that's the goal, but development issues or whatever. But no, after seeing it in this behind closed doors preview demo thing, I'm a believer. I think that they actually are on the right track, and I think they'll be able to hit that if this is truly indicative of the quality that they've been able to hit. So I'm here for it. I'm here for it. As always, I can't wait to talk about it more. I hope they make this gameplay demo available to everybody relatively soon so you can see what we saw, because it's super, super cool and they should be proud of it. And I think it is only a matter of time. I think they will release it to the public probably in like a month or two, but time will tell. But as always, if you have any questions about what we saw, just ask away in either the comment section. If I see it, I'll reply, or over on Luke Stevens Live, my live channel where we stream and hang out. You can just pop into chat and ask me a question about it, and if I can answer, I will answer. But all told, it was really, really cool. It was an awesome time. Thank you, Capcom, for seeing that. And yeah, I think this could be a pretty special game for early next year. So buckle up. Thank you for watching, everybody. Until next time, hugs and kisses. Bye-bye. He took my thing. Red flag, red flag.
Every time I look over at my PS5 sitting over there under the TV, it feels kind of new. Still, like it's a fresh console that just came out not too long ago. And yet, this thing came out 5 years ago. 5. And that's the part that messes with me. Because it just feels like things have been too quiet with the PS5. Sure, there were some heavy hitters early on, like Demon's Souls Remake, Returnal, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. Those were some good times. For a minute, I really thought we were about to hit that PS5 era stride. It kinda had that next-gen feeling. But then, almost like someone forgot to flip the switch, it just all kinda slowed down. The momentum evaporated. And I kept waiting for that tidal wave of exclusive PS5 only titles to wash over me, but it never came. I don't want to sound ungrateful because, yeah, I've played some great games on the system, but most of them, they weren't even made for the PS5. They were cross-gen, like Horizon Forbidden West. Great game, beautiful even, but I played it on PS5 knowing full well that there was a PS4 version out there, holding it back just a bit. Same for God of War Ragnarok. Amazing experience, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't that seismic leap forward I was craving. It didn't feel like something that could only exist on this generation. And this is where my hesitation about the PS6 really comes from. Not because I don't love tech, not because I'm some curmudgeon clinging to the past. It's because I don't feel like I've lived through the PS5 yet. Like, really soaked it in. There's been no definitive season, no golden age, just this long, hazy twilight, you know? I want to talk about the one that got away. If you've ever wanted to see a grown adult cry in a very composed, quiet way, bring up the Bloodborne remake, or specifically, the lack of one, the absence of one. I've been dreaming of that thing for years now, literal years. And I thought for sure that when the PS5 was gearing up to launch, or heck, even a year in, that this was the moment. This was when we'd see that game getting the treatment that it deserves. You know, a full-blown remake, or even a really solid remaster, running at 60 FPS, loading in a blink. And you know, I thought who'd better to make it happen than Bluepoint. Those guys nailed the Demon's Souls remake. It's one of the most beautiful games on the console, period. And I just assumed, probably naively, definitely naively, that Bloodborne was next, that they were building it up in secret, that it was just a matter of time. But then I heard the news that Bluepoint was working on some God of War live service game. Dude, just let that sink in for a moment. Just let that sink in for a second. Bluepoint, the studio that gave us arguably one of the best remakes in modern gaming, period. The ones who understand atmosphere and tone and faithful recreation in a way few others do, working on a freaking live service game based on a franchise known for its tight single-player storytelling and methodical richness. I'm not gonna lie, that infuriated me. I'm no businessman. Heck, I probably don't even have an IQ above 90, or I don't know, I'm not that smart. But I just think that if you want to run and maintain a successful business, you should give the audience what it wants. Especially when that audience is clearly screaming to you exactly what it wants, like year after year, consistently non-stop. We want freaking Bloodborne, hello? And you have a team that can clearly do it and do it well, probably better than no one else out there? And you put these guys on a live service game. You're fired, Sony. You are fired. Anyways, though, I know what you might be thinking, like, hey, there have been games. You're being too hard on it. And sure, you know what, let's run the list. We've got Returnal, Ratchet & Clank, Demon's Souls, Spider-Man, Miles Morales, again, cross-gen, Final Fantasy 16. There's a handful of others if we stretch it. Ghost of Tsushima, Director's Cut, a PS4 game originally. The Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection, a few decent indies, and yeah, a smattering of third-party releases that ran better on the PS5 than PS4. But doesn't it feel a bit thin for 5 years? I mean, in total game count, I'm talking about signature moments. Things that define a generation. PS2 had GTA 3, Metal Gear Solid 2, Shadow of the Colossus. PS3 had Uncharted 2, The Last of Us, Little Big Planet. PS4 had Bloodborne, God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn. What's the game that defines the PS5? I'm still waiting on that if you ask me. If I think really hard about it, maybe Demon's Souls remake. For me personally, maybe even Returnal. Returnal is a tremendous game. Just phenomenal, in my opinion. And I can't wait for that spiritual successor for it to come out. I think it's called Saros or Saros. I'm not pronouncing that right, but you know what I'm talking about. And you know, it's not just about how many exclusives we got. It's the spacing of them. I think that's what's really bothering me, because we do have a decent amount of games on the PS5 that are exclusive to it, but it's just the spacing of it, how long they take to come out. The console launched with a bit of heat and then entered this weird drought. Even now, 5 years in, the release schedule feels light. I just think that Sony is going through a bit of an identity crisis. Back in the PS4 days, Sony knew who they were, you know? They were the single-player powerhouse, the studio that gave you rich story-driven adventures that you actually wanted to play alone. You didn't need a buddy, you didn't need a ping system or a battle pass, you just needed a controller, a couch, and a few solid hours to lose yourself in something incredible. Horizon Zero Dawn, God of War, Ghost of Tsushima, Bloodborne, even Days Gone. I really enjoyed Days Gone. Say what you will about it, but that game had ambition. I think it swung for the fences, and you just got that sense that Sony believed in those types of games. Like, yeah, this is our thing. This is what we do best. And then something shifted, man. Something along the way, maybe it was the pressure from investors or the growing success of Fortnite, probably, most definitely the growing success of Fortnite. And, you know, someone probably just getting a little too excited about recurring revenue charts. Sony decided that they wanted to chase live service. Hard, too. Like, not dabble in it, not experiment with it, but full on pivot to it. Suddenly, they just weren't supporting a few multiplayer projects here and there. They were talking about launching 12 live service games. 12? Bro, that's not exploring new territory. That's a full-blown invasion. And look, I'm not anti-live service. There's room in the industry for all kinds of experiences. The problem isn't that Sony is trying something new. The problem is what they're sacrificing in order to do it. Studios that were built around strong single-player storytelling games being reassigned and repositioned to live service games, dude. Those time and those resources that could have gone into making the next big solo adventure, spent on multiplayer maps, seasonal cosmetics, and back-end infrastructure for online services that might not even survive a year post-launch. I don't think it's just about the games they're making. I think it's about the values that they're shifting away from. If you ask me, that's why the PS5 feels like it's lacking a soul. But don't get me wrong, they would be fools not to chase some of that live service type of stuff. You just can't deny, like, when you look at how much money Fortnite is making every single day, if you're a business, you're going to want some of that too. But it shouldn't be at the cost of sacrificing some of your best single player developers. Because you can't get that time, that focus, and that energy back. You know, once it's gone, it's gone. Let me go back to Bluepoint for a second because honestly, I'm still salty about it. Bluepoint was in such a unique position after Demon's Souls. They had this momentum, this goodwill, this trust from the community. People were ready to crown them as the next great studio for remakes. Heck, maybe they already had the crown. I forgot about Shadow of the Colossus. That remake was amazing. But it felt like they were on the verge of stepping out of that shadow of just being the remake team and becoming something even bigger possibly. And Sony had the perfect opportunity to build on that success. Just give Bluepoint the Bloodborne remake, please. Give them something bold and beloved to breathe new life into. Something that would have defined the PS5 era. I mean, it could still happen maybe, hopefully. I don't know though. I mean, maybe it's happening right now. I don't know. But anyways, they hand them a God of War live service project. I can't. Like, what are we doing? For real, what are we doing? Anyways, let's move on to another topic. One of the things that used to make PlayStation was how it set the tone for gaming. It didn't seem like it was reacting to what was hot. It was leading the conversation. It was saying, hey, check this out, and the rest of the industry would follow. But it's been the other way around lately. Live service is the perfect example of that. Instead of doubling down on what made them, Sony's been chasing the same trends as everyone else: multiplayer shooters, hero-based PvP, persistent online worlds. And, you know, like I said earlier, I understand it. I get that temptation, but I hate it. I just do. You saw what happened to Concord. You see what's going on with Marathon. I mean, Marathon is still in alpha, but yeah, that's not looking too good. I'm just sick of it. I am sick of this live service push. And it's just that Sony has a gold mine with single player games. You know how they keep remastering and remastering the remasters of their current games? Dude, they could pull back from the PS1, the PS2, the PS3 generation and remake so many bangers it's ridiculous. Like, if they're in a position right now where they might be creatively bankrupt, all they gotta do is look backwards. Just randomly pick one of them. Remake it and you win. I don't know, remake Heavenly Sword. Remake Uncharted 1, Uncharted 2, Uncharted 3, just remake them. I'll play them. Remake those first 3 God of Wars. I'll play them. Heck, go even further back. Remake Siphon Filter. Jumping Flash, I don't care. Why not remake Tekken 1, Tekken 2, Tekken 3? Just think outside of the box, man. You've got an infinite amount of amazing games from way back in the day that you can remake and make bank, because I'd show up for every single one of them. This doesn't mean you have to drop the live service thing, but you should, I don't know, man, you should be opening up studios focused on digging in the crates and kind of dusting some stuff off and, you know, remaking them. I think there's a huge audience for this type of stuff because the vast majority of us are, you know, graybeards. I've been around since the PS1. I've been around even before the PS1, and I've been there for every generation. The 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you have too. And I'm just the type of guy who won't hesitate to buy a proper remake. Like the Oblivion remake, tremendous. I can't stop playing it. When that Silent Hill 2 remake dropped, I was all over it. Those Resident Evil 2 through 4 remakes, all over it. No hesitation. I picked them up ASAP. What about Sly Cooper? What about Jak and Daxter? Come on, man. Sony's got an arsenal of bangers. It doesn't even make sense. But I think I'll leave the video off here. I've got another idea to talk about why I'm not ready for the PS6, because I'm really not ready for the PS6. There's been talks of it potentially coming out like around 2027, and that doesn't make me happy at all. This is the first console generation where I am completely and absolutely not ready for the next one. There is too much unfinished business with this PS5 to even be thinking about a PS6, in my opinion. COVID definitely had something to do with it. I think we're in this strange time warp. I don't know, time is just weird and it doesn't make sense anymore. But anyways, I think we've got some serious unfinished business with the PS5 to even think about a PS6 right now. And I think I'm going to reserve this thought for another video. For now though, I'm going to get out of here for now. Share your thoughts in the comments, subscribe, give me a like, and I'll talk to you later.
Y'all ready for this?
You know what's so funny? Everyone who felt comfy enough to out themselves that they voted for Trump back in January,
Yeah.
they're dead silent right now.
No, they're not. What?
Dead silent.
Apprehending them and taking them away from their families and their jobs and the lives they've built here doesn't bother you, then you're a bad person.
Oh no! Fuck. Guys, I never thought about it that way. Oh no!
And I don't want to be your friend. And I don't care about your opinion.
Oh. What?
I say this in the most disrespectful way possible as a first-generation American whose parent is not from this country. If you got here and you got papers and you agree with what's going on right now, fuck you.
If you are a resident of Los Angeles, California, and you
I'm
have
starting to recognize a pattern.
a large platform on this app on the internet,
Yeah.
and you have decided, you have made the conscious choice to not speak out against the ICE raids that are taking place in this city right now,
Go ahead.
the attack that Los Angeles is feeling in this moment,
They're getting
if you're
attacked.
not sticking your head out for your own community, the city of Los Angeles in which you live, that you benefit so much from.
See, these women, all of them stand to lose their royalty status where they get driven around and food delivered by illegal aliens that work off of somebody else's Uber or Uber Eats account. And they have their entire lifestyle that's subsidized by the exploitation of labor of people in third world countries that have come over here seeking a better life, but have instead been taken advantage of by companies and corporations to the expense of everybody in the country. They don't want to lose their indentured servants. They don't want to lose their privileges. They don't want to lose their pool boys, their housekeepers, all of the jobs that they think that they're too good to do. Well, maybe you're not.
If you can't do that, you do not deserve your platform, and maybe you should fucking move.
Oh.
I don't know who needs to hear this, but being undocumented isn't a crime. You're just racist. See you in hell. Mwah.
Oh, man.
I think it's important to remember that though what Trump is doing in LA is absolutely deranged and incredibly fucked up.
Let's hear this from the mentally ill pink burrito. Let's hear her opinion.
It is an act of desperation. The people behind all this, though it may seem very calculated, are not smart.
California does not
Well, I mean, it sure worked.
really belong to the United States. It belongs to Mexico, and we stole it from them in 1850.
Didn't it belong to Spain before Mexico? It did. So why is it that... I mean, shouldn't Mexico be apologizing to Spain? I mean, because if anything, I feel like, and then the natives, right? I mean, shouldn't Spain apologize? Because why is it Mexico? Isn't it weird how it's like, because a lot of people have owned the land over the years, but it's just the second people that owned it, the people right before us, they're the ones that really owned it? I don't know about that, man. That doesn't make any sense. Fuck.
People would not have to be protesting if what was going on in this country was even a little bit normal. Instead of
You're right. It's completely...
thinking
What this girl, by the way, she got nails like Wolverine. And you're talking about being normal? Holy shit.
About what's going on. Think about what has been going on that causes something like this to go on.
Yeah.
Illegal immigration causes it. That's what we call it. That's what the cause. That's what causes it.
I would do absolutely anything for my daughter, and that includes going to a different country to give her a better life.
These terms are acceptable. Thank God. Thank fucking God. I was hoping this.
And being undocumented is not a criminal offense. It's a civil one. And if you've ever jaywalked, congratulations, because you've also committed a civil offense. And you're so...
None of these people think that it would be okay to do half of the civil offenses that are against the law. Just because something is a civil offense doesn't mean that it's bad. Or it doesn't mean that it's good. What does that even mean? Like, I don't even understand. Like, it's insane. And also, like, where does this even come from, by the way? Is entering the U.S. without documentation a criminal offense? It's generally considered a criminal Entering is, but being here isn't? I just... Let me think. Just give me a minute. Give me a minute. I've got to process that. That's gonna take me a minute. Okay. So you're saying that? Okay. Wow. So you're saying that if you're not actively doing a crime, then it's okay. Like, if I don't even understand this. So if you, Mike, if you ran a red light and a cop sees you on like a camera running a red light, but you're not actively running the red light when they pull you over, they can't give you a ticket. I mean, I don't think this makes any fucking sense, guys. I really don't. Yeah, I have to lay down. This is crazy.
Worried about criminals being in this country, yet you voted for one to run it.
This is one of those moments where silence feels really fucking loud, because what do you mean you're not absolutely horrified by what's happening right now?
Uh-huh.
If you are not absolutely horrified by what's going on right now, your delusion...
I've seen videos of children being separated from their families and families being pulled apart and people crying doesn't elicit any amount of empathy from you.
It doesn't. Nope. That's what happens to anybody whenever their parents commit a crime or do something wrong. That's just how it is. Like, if you're a parent and, like, you rob a bank, they're going to arrest you. And even if your kids are crying, they're going to still put you in jail. Why would I have any empathy for that? Yeah, what is this?
I'm so sorry, but you might be the problem. Empathy and kindness are some of the most powerful things that we have. Everyone you see on here is a person with...
Well, she's right about that, but she doesn't realize that it's been weaponized against her best interests.
The story, just like you.
I could never and will never be friends with a Trump supporter. And I hate when people act like that statement is like a
very crazy
thing to say. Personally, I like to share similar morals and values with the people I surround myself with. And at this point, it's moved. It's always been like this, honestly. It's not even political. It's a human rights issue.
Influencer and content creators, if you can't even reshare something, we see you. Speak the fuck up. You should not deserve a platform if you can't even reshare.
Isn't it so good, bro? Like, I am so glad to see this stuff. This is great. and someone actually doing something productive, not just talking Karens lounging into bed. I know, it's bad. And so she likes being in an echo chamber. Yeah, these people don't want to talk to anybody that disagrees with them. That's it.
See you.
I'd say this with the most disrespect possible, but if you reap the benefits of Los Angeles and you're not willing to protect and respect individuals who are the beating heart of Los Angeles, then leave this city. Because there are plenty of other states and plenty of other cities that will take you in your inhumane worldview, but it's not.
Yeah, I can't even hear it.
You
but
know what's
like, this is the these are the people. I'm not really surprised by this. All Karens? I know it is. It is every single time. And it's all that you're a bad person or something like that. It's just embarrassing, bro. Illegals are the heart of the city. Well, again, I think that I think that these people have a tremendous amount of privilege, and they live. You know, again, these are all like, you know, at least many of them are like, I would say, like attractive, you know, women that live in a first world country. They live at the apex of privilege. And so they don't even understand the problems and the issues that average people have because they don't affect them. And so, yeah, they're narcissists. They are. I mean, like, you got people putting on like plastic surgery, shit like this.
So for anyone who's wondering, they aren't letting protesters in anymore. They've shut that shit down.
There are two groups of people in this country that cause all of our problems.
Will not give an answer why. Someone got a video of me actually, find it somewhere. Will not say why. Did not say it's violent, did not say it's illegal, just shut it down. They are stopping us from protesting. They said it was their commander who shut it down. I said, oh, your commander's here? He said no.
So I have a policy. If a person has face tattoos, they're not a good decision maker. That's the policy. Now, you got a few of them boys that get it right. Like Post Malone. I like Post Malone. But besides him, like maybe like one other guy, that's it. Good policy? Yeah. Like, look at the Island Boys. How are they doing? How the Island Boys doing? Yeah, Mike Tyson. There's another one. All right, that's fine. She got that Medusa neck? She does. Oh my God.
Here he said no. I said, then who shut it down? He said we didn't. I said, where's your fucking commander? He said, call LAPD. I called LAPD. The phone lines are closed. Seems like someone knows that they're doing something fucked up and they don't want to be called the fuck out on.
See, this is what I call about a caterpillar Karen. See, she going and pulling this Karen shit, but she's only in her 20s now. By the time that she's 45, you can imagine like that her kid's middle school is going to know her on a first name basis. Like she is going to be the terror of that school. She's going to be part of the PTA trying to get them to change the fucking food. Like this is going to be, oh my God. Can you imagine that? That's terrifying. Whenever she evolves into a butterfly.
Please call LAPD, call your congressman, call your secretary of Homeland Security, call everybody. Let them know that this shit's not fucking cool.
Yeah.
And to all the LA lapdogs out here,
yeah,
who are breaking up fucking families and fucking schoolhouses, bro. I can't wait till they come for your ass. So
why would they come for LAPD? I mean, they're not illegal aliens. I don't even understand it. Like, like. You know what? I think that a lot of this is. I think that a lot of it is legitimately people that don't know that they're going after illegal aliens. Because they've said it so much and they've intentionally obfuscated so much that I bet some people are actually confused. And they legitimately think that they're actually rounding up all of the brown people or all of the fucking immigrants, and they're just getting rid of them. Straight up, because that's what they keep saying. Like, I mean, there's got to be some people that are dumb enough to not read anything about it. So, yeah, they gaslight themselves. They sure do. Yeah, I don't even know what to say. That's the point of Democrat tactics? I guess so, but it's sad, man. It really is. And then, oh my God, bro.
Fuck off! You fucking Nazis! It doesn't help the cause. How does it not, honey? Carrying on is just making it worse for us. Okay, so let's be Neville Chamberlain from Britain, who literally is like, hey, let's not tell the Nazis not to do it, because then we're making it worse if we tell the Nazis not to.
How are you doing it? How you're going about it?
I get to tell them that they should.
This guy thinks that he's fighting against the Nazis. He actually thinks that. Oh my God.
Resign, and they suck. Fuck you. Resign from your jobs. All of you. All of you resign.
Well, everybody should just quit their job. Okay, great idea.
Listen,
all
I don't like
Look how red he is.
I have friends who also here. I have friends who may have been taken away too. I'm nervous and I'm angry too.
I'm scared for them.
Yes.
I'm terrified for them and their children.
But I'm terrified for you. Because if
Fuck
you
that! I don't have children.
If you act out, you're.
I don't have children.
What would you do if you didn't have breakfast this morning? But I did have breakfast. Yeah, but what would you do if you didn't? Yeah, but I did.
I'll go to jail. I don't fucking care. I have a cat.
I also have to say, my my rule works pretty well.
Like, I love my cat.
Is it? Wait, what is this?
I have a cat. Like, I love my cat.
I love my cat. I have a cat. Lunatic. Look at this. Oh no, look at this guy. We need to, dude. This is the problem, is that lunatic in LA screams and curses at law enforcement officer because they're protecting a city ruined by rioters. The dude has a total mental collapse and ends up crying and talking about his cat. Give police raises and reopen the asylums. Look at, by the way, look at how red he gets in just 1 minute. In 1 minute. Oh my God. This is insane. Yeah, it's fucking plastered. I know, this guy's absolutely out of his fucking mind. And so, yeah, he's closing the asylums is the biggest mistake we ever made. I know it is. It is a massive fucking mistake. The cat's gonna get deported. Yeah, we're gonna figure out whether that's a legal cat or not. It's gonna get deported. But yes, this is the way that a lot of them think. It's the you're fighting against actual Nazis. It's insane. Jesus, they're so brain fucked. They are. And what I think is so ridiculous about this is that, does anybody think about what the level of disrespect it is to the people that were oppressed by the Nazi regime? That these people, these like weird, hyper-privileged, upper middle class liberals, like these like weird, crusty retards, are going around acting like they're being oppressed by Nazis? I mean, isn't it kind of like devaluing what that was? Because I feel like it kind of is. The vaccine shot made them crazy. That's a good point. Yeah, this is another group too. Look at this. This is really great. So this is, again, one of the main things that these people love to do is they're standing in the road. They're preventing this woman from going to work. And they're explaining to her why it's actually a good thing that they're preventing her to go to work.
Look at this. That's what happens to my kid. But you can if you could just move out the way. You're not going to. How is this a peaceful protest if there's nothing to do? No, it's not.
How do y'all as white people feel about stopping a black woman from going to work?
Oh no, not work.
Not work. Yeah, I know, it's crazy. Some people do have to go to work. Isn't that crazy? Wow. Yeah, not work. Yeah, imagine that.
I care so much.
So you don't care about stopping black people from going to work?
Look at this line that you guys are causing. I'm not causing no problem. I'm not trying to. We're just trying to leave.
It's actually so funny because, like, these are the this is like, you could not have made a more stereotypical video than this. This is exactly this is perfect. Absolutely fucking perfect. What an annoying, obnoxious person. They sent out a message to all of the stolen iPhones because you had a bunch of retards that went in and they broke in and stole the iPhones. iPhones stolen from an LA Apple store last night triggered an alarm urging the looters to return them. Please return to the Apple Tower Theater. This device has been disabled and is being tracked. Oh, wait, what? Well, they can't. How the fuck? Wait, they could do that? Wait, what do you mean? Oh. Yeah, there they are. We got them, guys. All right, yep, we got him. Fucking embarrassing. One of the ways that you can avoid this happening is that you have to bring in a Faraday cage. An easy way to do that is to have a microwave. And so if you're going to steal something like this, you have to put the devices inside of a microwave, because the way that a microwave contains, like basically it makes sure that the microwaves stay inside of there, also stops anything else from getting in or any signals and services from getting in. So if you want to steal these things and not have that happen, you have to put them in a microwave. Like, that's a very, very simple, easy way to do this that everybody has access to. And it's just how I do it. Yeah, exactly. Right. And so like these people, and now I don't know if that still works nowadays, right? But it used to work. And aluminum foil does not work. It does not work. And at least 30 seconds. Yes, exactly. So this is embarrassing. Like, these people don't even know how it works. They don't even know how it works. It's stupid. They so dumb, bro. Like, wow. Why do you do this? I'm just saying how it is. They think you mean turning on the microwave? No, it doesn't. No, the microwave, so basically the outside of the microwave, the way that it's built is built to obstruct frequencies and obstruct signals. That's why you don't get microwaved whenever you're in front of a microwave. So, and that, you ever have like your mom tell you don't stand in front of the microwave? That's because the door could have some different, it could not be completely sealed. And so that's the reason why. It's Faraday cage. Yeah, you look this up. It's super simple. They dumb as fuck. They didn't even bring that. Like, I feel like anybody will, like, I knew that by the time I was 18. Like, this is obvious. Does it block GPS signal? Yeah. If you have a good one, it does. That's the whole point. Once you take the phone out, connect to the internet? Well, yeah, but you can at least relocate it so they can't track you in real time. So that's the reason why. And it's funnier if you don't tell them that part, though. Yeah, it's embarrassing. You can't keep it in the microwave forever. Dumbass idea. No, it's not about keeping it in the microwave forever. It's about them being able to track your real-time location as you're relocating it to another location. Because, like, as soon as because they're probably not going to have, like, instantaneous, like, listen, this is not how to do it, all right? It's not how to do it. They're stupid for doing it this way. They're dumb. This is what you get. And here come the cops. There they are. You're dumb. You fucking idiot, right? That's it. Doesn't matter once it's bricked. You can still get, yep, there it is. Oh, wow. Hey, look at that. Hi, guys. Hi, guys. Where'd these come from? Oh, I bet probably from across the street. And so, they did a major announcement.
And
Mark
you're
Mullen,
sitting here.
If you hang on, let's listen in on Gavin Newsom, then I'll give you a chance to respond first.
California governor.
I don't think we have any volume. All right. I guess we have no... Is that on their end or is it on our end? I'm asking. If that's on their end, apparently a live feed. He's having a little bit of difficulty.
It's the smartest thing he's ever said.
Mark Mullen, if you have time for podcasts and MSDNC and to fight me on X and you on X, I think you're kind of missing the point. Or if you put handcuffs on police.
He absolutely is, Sean, but this is probably the best thing that could happen to him. He's having audio difficulties.
Worse than random
but it shows
kick
how bad the state's being ran, too, right?
Yeah, they can't figure shit out, man.
He's having a little bit of difficulty, Mark Waymon. If you have time for podcasts.
Oh, God. I don't even know what to say, but it's sad. And let's see if I can find it. Mic was stolen? Yeah, the mic got stolen. There it is.
I know Gavin Newsom. I actually happen to like him as a person. The reality is he's not going to like what I have to say on this, which is that his behavior is starting to resemble that of another Democratic governor from U.S. history by the name of George Wallace, who was the governor of Alabama, who famously stood in the way of federal desegregation. And in 1963, President John F. Kennedy had to deploy the National Guard of Alabama, just like President Trump is doing today. And I know that's counterintuitive to some people, but the parallels are actually pretty striking if you think about it. Democrat governors, when you look at George Wallace, he resisted desegregation. Gavin Newsom is resisting deportations. George Wallace wanted segregated cities. Gavin Newsom wants sanctuary cities. George Wallace stood in the school door blocking the way. Gavin Newsom.
I know people don't like Vivek because of like his stance on immigration. Listen, guys, you got sometimes whenever you roll the dice, you got to take a 16. It might not be a 20, it might not be a nat 20, but you got to roll with that 16. You got to roll with that 14. But he's mostly on your side.
Newsom is blocking the ICE vans. It's the same Democrat governor playbook. You dodge the feds, you rally the radicals, and most importantly of all, you do it in front of the cameras. Because what they were both doing is really carving their Democratic primary path for their presidential ambitions. And Jesse, you can mark my words on this one. Gavin Newsom's presidential ambitions are going to end in the same place that George Wallace's did, in the dustbins of history where it belongs. That's just the truth.
He just talking mad shit, bro. God damn. Oh my God, bro. You going in the garbage. Well, got put. Yeah, absolutely got fucking cooked. Wow. And Gavin to be a clown. Yeah, that was bad. And they got dustbin. Yeah, I think so. And on the individual level, you seem to cover them like that one time at the gas station. Well, what do you mean by that? I don't know what you mean. But anyway, let's go back. I see this here. And true, though? Yeah, it is true. It absolutely is. Let's see. I go find any more of these because there's a bunch of these other things that have been going on. And yeah, here it is again. They got a bunch of them.
Immigrants who were detained here in Southern California over the weekend have already been deported. Mexico.
Already? God damn. That's fast.
Foreign minister says 4 immigrants who were detained.
Look at they dragging his fucking lazy ass. Man, I would fucking hate being a cop. You gotta drag these fuckers around. You gotta drag them. Oh my.
4 immigrants who were detained in Friday's ICE raid in LA's Fashion District arrived in Mexico less than 48 hours later. Some advocates call the speed of their deportation, quote, unusual. The Department of Homeland Security has not said how many immigrants they have detained in the raid so far, but says at least 16 people who were captured had extensive criminal history. Immigrant advocacy groups say more than 200 people who were detained did not have criminal records.
Right.
I've watched Molotov cocktails and fireworks shot mortars being launched out of tubes at our officers. They're encountering routinely M-type fireworks and commercial-grade fireworks, which in the state of California are considered explosives, and they can kill.
That's right.
Our officers should never have to face targeted violence while standing on a line to protect others.
People getting mad about me for saying this.
I want to thank the district attorney for pursuing felony charges in these cases. It sends a strong and important message. If you assault a peace officer in this city or this county, you will be held accountable. Additionally, I'm also pleased that there are charges related to looting and vandalism, crimes that took advantage of the unrest to target businesses and city property. In one case, a retail store was burglarized.
There's 2 people lost fingers because of those fireworks.
Merchandise were stolen.
Hopefully the people
and another
them.
graffiti was sprayed onto a historic public building while an accomplice stood watch. These crimes don't advance any cause or further any message.
That's right.
What they do is harm to our communities, our small businesses, and our civic institutions.
Thank God.
The LAPD will continue to investigate all incidents thoroughly and work with our partners in the DA's office to bring every offender to justice. We remain committed to protecting First Amendment rights, restoring peace, and holding criminals accountable. I want to thank our officers, our partners, and this community for their resilience and cooperation throughout this event. Thank you.
Wow.
And before we start with questions, I also want to thank the two members of my office that have worked around the clock to bring these charges.
Well, it looks like they're going to, it looks like they're going to jail. Thank God. And that's what, see, the thing is, they got to talk about the convictions, though. That's the thing is, because, like, if you get this charge, but, like, it gets dismissed or dropped or some bullshit, like, yeah, you got to be like, hey, guys, by the way, this dude that fucked around is in jail for 5 years now. Like, that's what needs to happen. Or he's in El Salvador, right? So this is the letter that Hassan, he got sent this from Department of Homeland Security. Dear Hassan, after careful review, we have determined that your Global Entry Program membership was revoked because you do not meet the guidelines for program participation. An individual is ineligible to participate in a trusted traveler program. It determines that the individual presents a potential risk for terrorism. The risk determination will be based on part of the applicant's ability to demonstrate past compliance with laws, regulations, and policies. I mean, Hassan was literally in the middle of the fucking highway the other day, right? I mean, that's not, as far as I know, standing in the middle of the highway isn't legal. You cannot interview a Houthi terrorist that you introduce as a Houthi terrorist.
Bro, are we about to have a Houthi rebel on stream? Yes, brother.
And then say, we support you. Give him a hand heart. Then you say, you 10 toes down, support the Houthis.
10 toes fucking down.
Is Hassan known or suspected of being or having been engaged in conduct constituting being in aid of or related to terrorism? The Houthis are a terrorist organization. He's absolutely aiding the Houthis by giving them screen time and promoting them. Do you know who else agrees that Hassan giving them screen time positively and aiding them is legitimate? Ubisoft.
Thank you, Ubisoft, for sponsoring the stream for me to play Assassin's Creed Shadow.
So obviously it has value. They're paying him. Now there's some people who say it's not terrorism. You can say that, but according to the government, it is. And if you're supporting a group that according to the government is a terrorist organization, you should expect the government to expect you or to think that you are supporting terrorists. Anybody who's watched his stream knows that that is a 1-for-1. If it was there as a reporter, it's okay, but he's not okay? No, you're not a reporter whenever you're saying that you support them. You're not reporting the news, you're promoting this. The United States government took him off the list because of his support of terrorism, but Hassan has never been banned on Twitch for terrorism, for supporting it, not ever. Even though every single instance of this being a problem was recorded on Twitch, which I find to be very interesting. Go ahead. Go ahead. Let them know. How the protest doing? Nobody's even watching her. They don't even care.
Everybody ready? Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah.
Let me just say that I am proud to stand here with leaders from our region. There are over 30 mayors represented here who I think reflect the concerns that are going on in our community right now. A week ago, everything was peaceful in the city of Los Angeles and in all of the representatives behind me in their cities as well.
Yeah.
Things began to be difficult on Friday when raids took place. And it's important that I begin there because that is the cause of the problems that have happened in the city of Los Angeles and other cities.
Well,
this was this was provoked by the White House.
Yes.
The reason
Trump
why
made them light the cars on fire.
I posit
he made them do
maybe
that.
We are part of a national experiment to determine how far the federal government can go in reaching in and taking over power from a governor, power from a local jurisdiction.
That's right.
And frankly, leaving our city and our citizens, our residents, in fear.
Emotional
All of
messaging.
us represent cities in this region where immigrants are key, and if in some cases not the majority of the population. To have people live in fear like it is today is just unacceptable. So we started off by hearing the administration wanted to go after violent felons, gang members, drug dealers. But when you raid Home Depots and workplaces, when you tear parents and children apart, and when you run armored caravans through our streets, you're not trying to keep anyone safe. You're trying to cause fear and panic. And when you start deploying federalized troops on the heels of these raids, it is a drastic and chaotic escalation and completely unnecessary.
They had to deploy
These
the
aren't
troops
the
because
criminals
it was
the
chaotic.
administration is allegedly targeting. These are mothers and fathers, restaurant workers, seamstress,
More
home
emotional
care
messaging.
workers, everyday Angelinos trying to make a living.
Yep.
We've heard stories of unmarked federal vans parked near LAUSD school graduations. A U.S. citizen, 9 months pregnant, who was hospitalized after being detained by federal agents, and an apparel business in downtown L.A. raided,
You hear
where
that,
many
guys?
Korean
Let's get
and
rid of the
Latino
laws.
workers work long hours to support their families.
That's right.
Let me just say that I am very proud to stand here with the mayors, the leadership of so many cities, But you should take note that the individuals that are here with me today are all leaders in their area, and we all stand in support and solidarity and call for the raids to end. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Mayor Lemons from the city of Paramount.
Paramount what?
Thank you, Mayor Bass, for bringing us together today.
You see how their only argument against it is trying to make you feel bad?
In this difficult time.
That's it.
I stand before you today as the mayor of Paramount, a proud, tight-knit community that has been deeply shaken by recent events. In the last few days, our residents have faced loss, uncertainty, and fear. For many in our city, this has been one of the most devastating moments in recent memory. Lives have been disrupted, families are too afraid to leave their homes, and the very places that once served as gathering spots for joy, like our beloved swap meet, have been marred by fear. As a vibrant gathering place for our diverse community, some are avoiding going to work. It continues to get worse as these loyal vendors are forced to stay away out of fear of losing their livelihood. For some, it's the only way they feed their families. To see everyone hurt like this is heartbreaking. Last night at our city council meeting, we heard from our residents. Their anger, their fear, and their uncertainty about the future is understandable. Not only did we hear it last night, myself and members of the city council witnessed the devastation firsthand that Saturday morning. We share the same anger, sadness, and trauma. Then to see the presence of the National Guard in our city, it only makes things worse and leads to unnecessary escalation.
I think it did the opposite.
We can and will do better to serve and advocate for our immigrant population. I want to speak directly to the people of Paramount. We see you, we hear you,
legal
and we
or
are
illegal.
with you. We acted last night and directed staff to create a special fund that will financially help our immigrant families affected during this challenging time. And it doesn't stop there. The City Council and staff are working tirelessly to develop other means of support and assistance, doing more to support our community. We will also be seeking out our residents who have been directly impacted so that we may hear from them and provide direct support. Paramount is resilient. We've been through challenges before, and we will rise together.
Good for you.
We are also grateful for the regional collaboration that's happening right now. We cannot face this alone. This is a moment for cities to stand united, regardless of our boundaries, because when one community is hurting, we all feel it.
Yeah,
to our
because you burned down
cities,
the whole city.
to the county, to the state agency, and to Mayor Bass.
It's pretty obvious.
Thank you for extending a hand to our residents. Your support means the world. Would you mind seeing the next person? And next we have Arturo Flores, Mayor Arturo Flores from Huntington Park.
No.
Thank you so much, Mayor Lemons, for those remarks. Good morning. My name is Arturo Flores. I am the mayor of the beautiful city of Huntington Park.
Yeah.
I myself am a combat veteran of the United States Marine Corps. I've served in the theaters of Iraq and Afghanistan in defense of this country and in defense of the Constitution of the United States. Militarization of immigration enforcement has no place in our neighborhoods. And the deployment of Marines on U.S. soil is an alarming escalation that undermines the values of democracy. As mayors across this region, we stand united in rejecting fear-based tactics that target immigrant communities and erode public trust. Let me say that one more time. We stand against these fear-based tactics that target immigrant communities and erode public trust.
If you actually did that,
we
you'd
call
go to
on
jail.
federal leaders to uphold civil rights and the militarization of enforcement and to pursue humane, community-centered solutions. Our communities
what they mean is by doing what they
are not
want.
battlegrounds. Deploying military forces and conducting militarized ICE raids in immigrant neighborhoods is not about public safety.
Why
It
not?
is about political theater that is rooted in fear.
What if they have guns?
It threatens families, traumatizes children, and corrodes the foundational trust between local government and the people that we serve. I stand shoulder to shoulder with Mayor Bass and with my fellow leaders and fellow mayors here, and any leader who values justice over intimidation. We will protect our residents. We will speak out against unconstitutional actions, and we will continue to build cities where all people, regardless of immigration status, can live without fear. I understand that the deployment of 700 Marines out of 29 Palms, and I believe the unit is 27, have been deployed to the Los Angeles area. I have a message for those Marines who are probably watching.
Hi. It's me,
Brothers,
the Marines.
I myself have fought in different theaters. I fought wars. And I will tell you this. The people that you are here who have been called foreigners are not foreigners. These are Americans. And when we lifted our hands and we swore the oath to defend the Constitution and to defend this country, that oath was to the American people. It was not to a dictator. It was not to a tyrant. It was not to a president.
Well, they're Americans.
It was to the American people.
But they're
and
not
the people that are here in these communities,
States.
in the city of LA, and the cities that you'll hear from, are Americans.
I mean,
whether
Mexico
they have a document or they don't, you're dealing with Americans.
South
so
America?
Please remember that. If you're ever put in a situation or asked to do something, remember, you are dealing with Americans.
South Americans.
With that being said, up next I'll introduce Mayor Judith Merlot from the city of Vernon. Sí, en español, mi nombre es Arturo Flores, yo soy el alcalde de la ciudad de Huntington Park. Estoy aquí hoy yo como veterano de los Estados Unidos, de la Marina, para decirle al público que lo que está pasando no está bien. Yo he peleado en guerras y yo tengo un mensaje para los marines, los 700 marines que están aquí en Los Ángeles hoy en día. Que las personas que ellos van a ver, que ellos van a estar en Los Ángeles, no son personas que son de un diferente país, no son personas que son terroristas. Estos son personas que son americanos. Entonces nosotros como una comunidad tenemos que elevar nuestra voz y decir que este tipo de injusticia no se vale. Y el mensaje es que las personas que están aquí en Los Ángeles son americanos. Con papeles o sin papeles somos americanos porque creemos en el sueño americano. Después quiero introducir al alcalde Judith Merlot de la ciudad de Vernon. Gracias.
All right, next.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Mayor, for having us. As Mayor of the City of Vernon, I want to reaffirm our city's unwavering commitment to the safety, dignity, and well-being of individuals, regardless of immigration status. I'm here today to stand in solidarity with Mayor Bass and the other local elected officials.
How do these people not get in trouble for like
and military presence in their
actively
cities?
trying to fight against federal law?
These recent events have been stressful and upsetting for many. In many challenging times, I want to reassure you, the people of Los Angeles, Southeast Los Angeles, and throughout the region, that we are your public servants, your neighbors, and your active partners, striving to maintain safe and inclusive communities. Thank you. I am now going to present Mayor Maria Davila from
There's
South
no way every single one of them is going to talk, is there? Oh my God.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Bass, for uniting all the mayors of the city of LA and the surrounding cities. As a mayor of the city of Southgate, I'm at whole with everything that is going on and how ICE is scaring our communities. Just as we were on our way over here, we were notified that they were raiding the city of Southgate, and that's unacceptable. Because you're targeting communities, you're targeting residents where children are living, where they reside.
You can't arrest people if there's kids there. You can't do that.
It is hard for us as elected officials to hear
Guys, you're not allowed
that a
to arrest people
person
if there's kids
who is
nearby.
representing us up in the federal level is capable of doing such a horrendous, just unbelievable things to our constituents and to our people.
Yeah, straight emotional manipulation.
We understand,
That's all
you know, that we have to.
Go ahead, get it out.
We have to uphold the law. But at the same time, we need to understand that we have families who are scared. We have residents who are scared. We have parents. We have children. Now our children are out of school. And what are they going to do? Are they going to be kept at home just because, I mean, the rates are continuing here in our communities? That's unacceptable. You know, we need to continue being united and let Washington, D.C. understand that this is a community of immigrants. We are all immigrants. I am an immigrant myself. I came to the United States, and I am working for our community.
Yeah,
the current
you're a legal
action
immigrant.
of ICE treats immigrants as criminals. We are not criminals. We are hardworking people. We came to the United States to work, to better our families.
Legally or illegally?
The humanizing and targeting people who often threat Southgate stands with our surrounding cities and to all our community. The people of the city of Southgate, I'm talking to you. You are not alone. We are here with you, and we are going to be helping and also making sure that everyone is safe.
No, they're not.
So with that, I am going to be calling up Mayor from Ventura, Jeanette Sanchez Palacio.
Thank you.
Bro, this shit is embarrassing.
Good afternoon or good morning still, everyone.
God.
Thank you for being here. Thank you, Mayor Bass, for inviting us.
Yeah.
Thank you to all the mayors who are here throughout California. And while you may see many of us, there are many more who are not here, who could not be here with us today, but who support this effort in being united together. We are outraged and heartbroken by the recent and ongoing ICE activities targeting immigrant families in our community.
Again, they do not even try to distinguish.
These actions are not only inhumane, but they are also an affront to the values we uphold in Ventura, but also throughout the state of California.
They intentionally obfuscate.
The city in Ventura in our region is an agricultural region. They are sustained by labor, resilience, and cultural richness of immigrant communities. And when our workforce lives are in fear, the fields will go unharvested. The impact is felt not only at the local level, but it will also be felt at the national level. Everything will be affected, and every American who is here and relies on the labor of these
1865?
individuals will also be affected.
1860?
These same individuals are also the community who held up the large portion of essential workforce while we were in the pandemic. These are the very workers who kept the state running, who kept our families fed, and who kept our lives safe. But most importantly, let's not forget that these people are also human. At the basic level, they are our friends, they are our family, and they are our loved ones.
So they're immune to the
law. And as
law.
Elected officials representing various cities across the state, we have come here together to condemn the separation of immigrant families. No one deserves to live in fear.
I thought families could be deported together.
Simply for seeking a better life, or for seeking a better life for themselves or their loved ones. And so we call for a swift and coordinated action by our federal officials to put an end to these destructive practices and instead focus on a comprehensive immigration reform. We call on our fellow elected leaders to raise their voices with courage and to center humanity in every decision they make.
Humanity.
Ahora en español. Soy la alcaldesa Jeanette Sánchez Palacios de la ciudad
I can't speak Spanish. You're going to say the same thing?
Y estamos aquí
Isn't it embarrassing that like every single one of them goes up and says the exact same thing about like, oh, like think of the children, think of the kids, people are afraid, all of this stuff. Like every single time it's the same exact thing. It's all emotional manipulation every single time, all the way down. There's no logic in this at all. Like, if you go and you're committing crimes or you're not supposed to be here, and if you have a kid, somehow, like, they're not supposed to be able to arrest you, like, it doesn't even make any sense. They're trying to weaponize your empathy against you to make you advocate against your best interests.